Chapter 2736. Boss Bai definitely wouldn't pay for the herbs, but Wang Xinyan was his fiancée after all, and he could use this as an excuse to get to know her better. Who knows, maybe he could even move Wang Xinyan's heart. Plus, this was a chance for him to show off his brother's strength. He had no reason to refuse. Xinyan woke up at that moment, and Xiaolong patted his chest as if he was on steroids. Don't worry, Xinyan is my fiancé. No matter how expensive or difficult these herbs are, my brother will be able to find them for me. Right, Xinyan, why don't we talk to Uncle Wang and Aunt Xiao about this? We can ask them about what happened back then. Let's see if they can find that wandering master they met back then and see if they can get the recipe and the name of that herb. Lin Yi said to Xinyan after Xiaolong left. Xinyan's face was a little gloomy. She'd learned about her condition these days, and Lin Yi's medicine couldn't help her get better. Even when Lin Yi stopped practicing, she was still sleeping more and more every day. Was this a sign that she was going to die? But Xinyan didn't blame Lin Yi. She was helping him out of her own free will. She just didn't want to die like this. She didn't want her family, she didn't want Lin Yi to die, and she didn't want her friends to die. But there was one good thing about dying. The conflict between Lin Yi and the Sky Elixir sect would no longer exist. Xinyan, Mr. Bai and I don't know what to do right now. You don't have to hide it anymore. Lin Yi said helplessly. All right. I'll tell my mom and dad if Professor Bai's medicine doesn't work. Xinyan nodded. She was a weak girl and she didn't like people worrying about her own stuff. After Xiaolong left, he gave Xiaoben a call and confirmed that Xinyan was indeed sickly and weak when she was young. There was one time when Xinyan's father, Wang Xuben, went to the Miaojiang area to collect herbs, and he met a wandering master who gave him some medicine and a spiritual herb. Xinyan's body got better after taking it. Xiaolong didn't suspect Lin Yi anymore after hearing this news. He called his brother Xiaoming directly. Bro. Xiaoming wanted to give Xiaolong a call as well, telling him that he was planning on going to Donghai for a mission in exchange for Lin Yi's recipe, but what troubled him was that he didn't know how to approach Lin Yi. He was afraid that Lin Yi wouldn't just ignore him, but would beat him up instead. Xiaoming, can you answer the phone now? Xiaolong asked. Although Kong Ming was his brother, Kong Ming's status was different now. He had to be careful. Brother, I was just about to call you. I might need to go back to Donghai in the next few days, Kong Ming said. What? You're going back to Donghai? That's great, I was just about to ask you to come back. I'm calling you because there's something I need your help with, Xiaolong said. Your sister-in-law Wang Xinyan has some problems with her health. Problems with her body? What problems? Kong Ming paused. It's just that her body has been weak since she was young, and it's acting up again recently. She's always sleeping. Xiaolong told Xiaoming about Xinyan's situation. Xiaoming, you have to help your bro this time. I've already asked for these ingredients, you have to get them. That's easy. Kong Ming listened to what Xiaolong said. The herbs might be valuable in the common world, but they weren't that rare in the Sky Elixir sect. With Kong Ming's status, it was natural that he could get some of them. Of course, it was also included in the elder's monthly allowance. But Kong Xiaoming had an advantage, and that was that he was going to carry out Xianzhen's mission. He could use the ingredients that Xinyan needed as a stepping stone to get in touch with Lin Yi, so the cost would naturally be on the Sky Elixir sect and Xianzhen's shoulders. Alright, I'll leave this to you, brother. Xiaolong let out a breath of relief when he heard Kong Ming's response. He finally had face in front of Lin Yi. In fact, Xiaolong had secretly analyzed the difference between him and Lin Yi. Didn't Lin Yi always come up with new and interesting things to make girls happy? He would do that to Xinyan in the future, and it wouldn't be a problem for him to win her over. Of course, this was his own analysis. The relationship between Lin Yi and Xinyan wasn't as simple as just pleasing her anymore. The fate between the two was truly miraculous. They'd been sitting together since they first met and they were still sitting together now. I'll let you know the exact time when I have news. On the other side, a disciple came to report to Kong Ming, asking him to go to the silkworm transformation room. Kong Ming was overjoyed and quickly ended the call. Kong Ming had been worrying about the lack of a chance to get close to the silkworm transformation. Now that there was a chance, how could he not be excited? He ran to the gate of the heavenly silkworm transformation's courtyard and knocked on the door carefully. It's Elder Kong. The young master is waiting for you. Come with me. The person who opened the door was still the silkworm transformation maid from before, but this time her attitude towards Kong Ming was much better. Thank you. Kong Ming's goal was to become a maid, to be able to stay by the silkworm transformation's side all the time. This maid was someone he'd have to befriend in the future, and Kang Ming Ming had to be polite to her. The maid was a bit surprised. The position of an elder of the Sky Elixir sect wasn't as high as the silkworm transformation, but she was still a maid. She had to maintain some dignity, and other people would at most say, "and," without saying thank you. "You're welcome." The maid's impression of Kang Ming Ming improved quite a bit, and a smile flashed in her eyes. "May I know your name, beautiful lady?" Kang Ming Ming was overjoyed to see that he'd managed to gain the favor of the maid. The maid wasn't very pretty, but Kang Ming Ming was a master at picking up girls. He'd turned the maid into a beautiful lady in no time. Chapter 2737. In the past few months, Kang Ming Ming had eaten a lot of natural treasures. Coupled with his diligent cultivation, he had changed from his previous weak appearance, which had been hollowed out by wine and women. He was really an elegant young man. No wonder Little Peach was attracted to him. Oh, Little Peach? Kang Ming Ming wanted to complain. Why are all maids called Little Peach? In the TV series and novels he had seen, there were many Little Peaches. However, for his dream and goal, Kang Ming Ming resolutely said with fake surprise, "Good name. You're like your name. Your face and peach blossoms reflect each other. This artistic conception is really amazing. Elder Kang, you are so knowledgeable. You can even recite poems." Little Peach said shyly in surprise. "Of course. My hand is so wet." Kang Ming Ming laughed and sighed in his heart. This Little Peach is really not good looking. But it's also a good thing. If she is good looking, will she leave the heavenly silkworm transformation to me? Then I won't have a chance. In the blink of an eye, Kang Ming Ming already had a plan. He would get Little Peach first and then get the heavenly silkworm transformation. He would have a threesome with both men and women. At that time he might be able to marry both the master and the servant. That would be awesome. Anyway, the Heavenly Elixir sect was an ancient sect, so it should not be a big deal to be gay. Moreover, Kang Ming Ming was confident in his appearance. During this period of time he had been taking tonics and cultivating, and he had already been reborn. He believed that as long as he guided the heavenly silkworm transformation to change its sexual orientation, it should still have a chance to be attractive to both men and women. "Oh, Elder Kang, I am talking to you. Don't let the young master wait," Little Peach said quickly. Then she led Kang Ming Ming through a long corridor in the courtyard and came to the door of a house. Little Peach knocked on the door, and the voice of the heavenly silkworm transformation came from inside. "Please come in." Kang Ming Ming carefully followed Little Peach into the room of the heavenly silkworm transformation. He did not dare to breathe loudly. He was like a different person from when he teased Little Peach. "Elder Kang, you're here. Have a seat." Silkworm pointed at a cushion in front of her meditating area. "Little Peach, go pour some tea for Xiaolong." "Yes, young sect master." Little Peach became respectful and cautious before the heavenly silkworm transformation. At this time Kang Ming Ming hurriedly said, "Young master, don't bother, I'm not thirsty. You can call me Xiaoming, I don't deserve to be called Elder Kang." "Little Ming?" Silkworm transformation was stunned, but he still nodded and said, "Okay, then I'll call you Little Ming." Kang Ming Ming was overjoyed. Only then did he dare to raise his head and say, "Young lord, why are you looking for me?" However, when Kang Ming Ming raised his head, he was stunned. What a handsome man. He was even more beautiful than the silkworm transformation that she had seen in the Hidden Right family. Was it because he had eaten the bone and marrow cleansing pill that she had refined? If that was the case, it was normal for him to become even more beautiful. At this moment, Kang Ming Ming had a ridiculous thought, and that was to get intimate with him. It turned out that when people saw a man who was more beautiful than a beautiful woman, they would also change their sexual orientation. At least this was what happened to Kang Ming Ming. "Oh, it's like this. Shenzhen Grandmaster told you, right? This time, when you go to East Ocean City, you have to find a way to exchange for the real recipe of the bone and marrow cleansing pill. The Heavenly Elixir sect will be your backup. You and that Linny will come and study it. If you need anything you can ask me directly." Silkworm transformation said, "But this time you must complete the task. Shenzhen Grand Master places great importance on this matter." "Yes, young lord, don't worry. I will do my best to complete the task." Kang Ming Ming patted his chest and promised. "Okay, you can leave now." Silkworm transformation waved her hand. "Young lord, are you tired? Do you want me to give you a massage? When I was learning how to make elixirs, I learned a set of massage techniques from Shenzhen Grand Master. Young lord, do you want to try it? Can I serve you Xiaoming?" Kang Ming Ming said flatteringly. He had indeed learned a set of massage techniques. In the beginning he had wanted to rely on silkworm transformation with this idea. "Massage? Service? Silkworm Transformation's expression changed slightly. He frowned and said, "No need. I appreciate your kindness. You can leave now." Little Peach, see the guest out. Elder Kong, this way please. Little Peach gestured for Elder Kong to enter. Kong Ming Ming wasn't discouraged. After all, it was the first time that he had surrendered to Silkworm Transformation, and it was normal that Silkworm Transformation didn't accept him. He believed that with his hard work he would be able to make Silkworm Transformation like him. Even if they couldn't become friends, it was fine to be his lackey. Little Peach, does the young master have any hobbies? Kong Xiaoming pretended to be nonchalant as he walked out of the courtyard. What are you doing? Little Peach looked at Kong Xiaoming cautiously. You aren't planning something on the young master, are you? Why would I? Young lord is handsome. Although I'm not as handsome as him, I'm not gay. In my heart, Little Peach is prettier. Kong Ming Ming quickly explained. Is that so? Little Peach heard Kong Ming Ming's words and thought that was indeed the case. Kong Ming Ming's naked confession made Little Peach's heart beat faster. Kong. Elder Kong, Little Peach isn't as pretty as young lord. Haha, that's different. He's a handsome guy and you're a beauty. Alright, don't call me Elder Kong. It's so distant. How about you call me Brother Xiaoming from now on? Kong Ming Ming said. Okay, Brother Xiaoming, Little Peach said shyly. It was no wonder that Little Peach was moved. Other than Sky Silkworm Shapeshifter, there was no other handsome guy that came into contact with her. And with Sky Silkworm Shapeshifter's background, Little Peach had already given up on the idea. With Kong Ming Ming appearing out of nowhere, it was only natural for her to be moved. She wasn't a beauty and she knew that. Although she suspected that Kong Ming Ming was lying to her, she was still fooled by Kong Ming Ming's sweet words. She wasn't young anymore, but she didn't have much experience in the world. Naturally, she was fooled by Kong Ming Ming. Kong Ming Ming's sweet words were known as the killer of innocent girls. Didn't Fan fall for it too? Hey Little Peach, I won't hide it from you. Since I want to pursue you, then I'll be honest with you. Kong Ming Ming sighed and pretended to be troubled. Little Peach's heart skipped a beat when Xiaolong said, want to pursue you. She was lost for a moment. Xiaoming bro. Chapter 2738. Think about it, the young master is a man. What can I covet from him? Isn't it because I want him to value me and make a name for myself? In the Heavenly Elixir sect, although I'm an elder, I'm the lowest ranked elder and I have no foundation. It's difficult for me to achieve something big. That's why you approached me and fawned over me, right? Little Peach was not stupid. After listening to Kong Ming Ming's words, she asked warily, you don't really like me. You're doing this because you want to get information about the young master from me, right? Little Peach, you're thinking too much. Kong Ming Ming waved his hand and said, I admit that I was exaggerating when I said you were beautiful, but I like you just like that. The most important thing is that you and I are a good match. You're the young master's maid and I'm an elder. In the Heavenly Elixir sect, you're the only one who can be my wife of the right age. Even if the servants are prettier than you, can I marry them? How shameful would that be? I'm an elder. Moreover, my taste is a little special. When I was young, I saw too many beautiful women and was a little tired. When I saw Little Peach, my eyes suddenly lit up. It's as if you're the one for me. Brother Xiaoming, is what you said true? Little Peach's eyes sparkled. Of course. Kong Xiaoming told a bunch of bullshit lies, but he managed to capture Little Peach's heart. These half-truths and half-lies were the most lethal. He wasn't afraid that Little Peach would think too much when she went back because Kong Xiaoming had already confessed his purpose. Brother Xiaoming, don't worry and carry out your mission. I'll help you put in a good word for the Heavenly Elixir sect. As for what the young master likes, I'll tell you when you come back. Little Peach said. Okay, Little Peach, you helping me is also helping yourself. If the young master has a good impression of me, then I'll go ask for your hand in marriage. Otherwise, the young master wouldn't have betrothed you to me. Kong Xiaoming said. Little Peach's cheeks were flushed red. Pho. Xiaoming let out a long sigh of relief as he watched Peach leave. His eyes were filled with excitement. He'd succeeded. The first step was a success. It was too smooth. He was a master at picking up girls. The next morning, Kong Ming Ming brought the ingredients Xiaolong needed to Donghai City. Xiaolong was overjoyed when he heard that Kong Ming Ming was leaving. He waited for Xinyan to wake up and eat lunch. Xiaolong sat in front of Xinyan and Lin Yi. Xinyan, don't worry, I've already asked my younger brother, the 8th elder of the Heavenly Elixir sect, to come here. After he arrives, I believe that the problem with your body will definitely be solved. He is a heaven stage master. a third-grade alchemist, much stronger than some Earth-stage masters who are not even alchemists yet. Xinyan, don't worry. I've sent my brother, the 8th Elder of the Heavenly Elixir Master. I'm sure he'll be able to solve your problem. He's a Sky class, a 3rd-level refiner. He's much stronger than some Earth-class refiners. Xiaolong looked at Lin Yi provokingly. He'd been holding it in for too long, and he finally had a chance to let it all out. Lin Yi didn't comment on Xiaolong's words. Let's talk about it when it's done. Xiaolong had placed all his hopes on Kang Xiaoming, or more accurately the Sky Elixir sect. When the time came, Xiaolong would use Xinyan's illness as a condition to negotiate with the Sky Elixir sect in exchange for Lin Yi's recipe. With the Sky Elixir sect as his backing, Xinyan's illness would be cured. This was why Xiaolong dared to talk big like this. Oh. Lin Yi didn't want to argue before Kang Mingming came. He'd hold it in for Xinyan's sake, but if Kang Mingming couldn't cure Xinyan's illness, there was no need for him to hold back. Oh. Lin Yi didn't want to argue before Kang Mingming came. He'd hold it in for Xinyan's sake, but if Kang Mingming couldn't cure Xinyan's illness, then there was no need for him to hold back. Both Xinyan and Lin Yi were expressionless, and Xiaolong felt like he was playing the lute to a cow. He left, depressed, Donghai Engineering University Professor Bai's office. Lin Yi, Xinyan, Xiaolong and Kang Mingming, who just arrived in Donghai, sat there. Lin Yi hated Kang Mingming a lot, but since Kang Mingming had given Xinyan so many precious herbs, Lin Yi decided to hold it in for now. In actuality, Lin Yi was thinking that he could just ask Xinyan's father, Wang Shubin, to buy these ingredients. If even a high-grade ingredient like the sky barrier-breaking fruit could be in his hands, then Boss Bai's ingredients shouldn't be a problem. But Xinyan didn't want to tell her parents about her health, and Lin Yi had no choice but to blackmail Xiaolong. Luckily, Lin Yi didn't feel like he owed Kang Mingming anything. In fact, it was Kang Mingming who owed him. Ah, isn't this Lin Yi? Long time no see, I heard you're in Earth class late phase now? Not bad, you'll catch up to me soon. I'm just a Sky class mid-phase. Kang Mingming laughed. Oh, then you've leveled up pretty fast. How many chi gathering pills did you eat? Lin Yi asked. Just 3. Kang Mingming said faintly. Sky Elixir sect values me quite a lot. I'm working for the young master of the Sky Silkworm sect right now, so I'm his direct subordinate. Lin Yi frowned. Kang Mingming was valued by the young master of the Sky Elixir sect? Was it because he knew how to make the bone cleansing pill? That shouldn't be the case. Logically speaking, trash like him should be tossed aside after being used. Why would he value him? Cut the bullshit. Since you're so powerful, why don't you take a look at Xinyan's condition? Your brother said that you can cure her. Lin Yi didn't want to waste time with Kang Mingming. Wait. Kang Mingming waved his hand. I don't just casually make house calls. There's a condition. What condition? Lin Yi asked patiently. The condition is simple. I can make house calls for Xinyan, but in exchange you have to give something in return. Kang Mingming turned to Lin Yi. What a joke. Xinyan is your fiancé, and you're asking me for something in exchange for her treatment? Are you sick? Lin Yi looked at Kang Mingming as if he was an idiot. Or are you saying that Xinyan has nothing to do with House Kang anymore? Chapter 2739. But Kang Mingming was an expert in shamelessness. He was ready to have sex with Silkworm Chang or lick his shoes for him. That was shameless to the extreme. My brother of course has to pay something. I'm asking you now, don't talk about useless stuff. If you want to cure Wang Xinyan you have to pay something as well. You all have to pay something, and I'm representing the Sky Elixir sect, not House Kang. So you're saying that if I don't pay something you're not going to cure her? Lin Yi asked. That's right, if you don't pay something then I'll just leave. If she dies then so be it, she'll still marry my brother. It doesn't have much to do with me. Kang Mingming said. Lin Yi was a little speechless at Kang Mingming's shameless reasoning, but for Wang Xinyan's sake, Lin Yi couldn't just go against him. If I agree to your conditions you'll definitely be able to cure her, right? Of course, if you agree to my conditions, I'll definitely be able to cure her. Kang Mingming said with a pat on his chest. Alright, what's your condition? Lin Yi took a deep breath. He chose to endure it for the sake of Xinyan's condition. If I cure Wang Xinyan you'll give me the real recipe for the bone cleansing pill. What do you think? Kang Mingming asked. The real recipe for the bone cleansing pill? Didn't I give you the real recipe? Lin Yi paused. Could it be that Kang Mingming or the Sky Elixir sect had discovered something? That shouldn't be the case. There's something wrong with the recipe you gave me. I've used the bone cleansing pill before, so I can concoct the bone cleansing pill. That's not a problem, but someone who's used the bone cleansing pill can't concoct the bone cleansing pill anymore. What's going on? Didn't you do something to the recipe? Kang Ming asked. Oh. Linny was stunned. He didn't expect that his pill formula would have such a problem. Kang Ming had said that only those who had consumed the marrow and bone cleansing elixir could refine the marrow and bone cleansing elixir. This flaw was indeed set by Linny. However, after Kang Ming refined the elixir, the person who consumed it could not continue refining it. This flaw was not set by Linny. Linny had never set this flaw. The flaw he set up should be the other one. Boss Bai also looked at Linny in surprise. Linny could change the recipe and even set up defects? However, Linny neither admitted nor denied it. He only said indifferently, "Oh, you're talking about this. There are 2 pill formulas and they're slightly different. I gave you one of them. Could it be that there's a problem? I'm not sure about that, but if you can cure Wang Xinyan's problem, I can give you the other one." This recipe wasn't a big deal to Linny. Since he had already given Kang Ming one, he wasn't afraid of giving a second one. As for the flaw Kang Ming mentioned, Linny just needed to find a way to improve it. As for the other flaws, if Kang Ming didn't mention them, then Linny wouldn't help him either. "Humph, I think you did it on purpose, didn't you? You don't know? You must know that the one you gave me was the original version, and the one you kept was the improved version." Kang Ming heard Lin Yi's words and immediately believed that Linny had set him up on purpose. "Don't worry so much. If you want the pill formula, go cure the disease. Otherwise there won't be any left," Linny said. "Then can you show me the pill formula first?" Kang Ming asked tentatively. "Are you retarded? If I show you the formula and you don't want to cure the disease, then scram. Where am I going to find you?" Linny looked at Kang Ming with disdain. "You have a bad character. I don't believe you. If you want it, go cure it. If you're cured, I'll give it to you. I'll do it in front of your brother and I can get Professor Bai to be my witness. I'll put the formula in Professor Bai's hands, and if you're cured, I'll ask him to give it to you. You can ask your brother yourself." Kang Ming turned to look at Xiaolong. Xiaolong hesitated for a moment before nodding. He trusted Boss Bai's character. "If Professor Bai is my witness, then I'll be fine." "All right, then you go first," Xiaolong said impatiently. Linny said impatiently. If it wasn't for Wang Xinyan, Linny wouldn't even bother talking to Kang Ming. Linny planned to deal with him after Kang Ming cured Wang Xinyan. Wang Xinyan was Xiaolong's fiancée, so when Kang Ming treated her, he behaved himself. He didn't dare to take advantage of her. Plus, he was here on a mission and he didn't want to mess it up. Kang Ming had learned some basic medical knowledge, but he didn't know the specifics. He only pretended to remember a few of Wang Xinyan's conditions and said, "All right, I need to think alone for a while. Find me a quiet room. You're quite troublesome. If you can't cure her, I'll kick your ass." Under Boss Bai's direction, Lin Yi brought Kang Ming to a private room. Kang Ming didn't need to think at all. His half-baked medical skills could only cure common illnesses like flu and typhoid. Wang Xinyan's strange illness wasn't something he could cure at all, so he came to the private room to call Sky Elixir for help. "Hello. Little Peach, it's me, Xiaoming bro." Kang Xiaoming dialed Little Peach's number. "Peach, I can't chat with you right now. Hurry up and help me find the young master. I'm having some trouble with my mission." Okay. Little Peach quickly went to find Silkworm Change and gave him the phone. Kang Ming first flattered Silkworm Change respectfully, and Silkworm Change frowned as he listened. Finally, he finished the story. "Lil Ming, you're saying that Lin Yi and Boss Bai can't do anything about Wang Xinyan's illness?" Silkworm Change asked. "Yeah, if they could cure her, it wouldn't be my turn," Kang Ming said. "All right, I understand. Wait for my news." Silkworm Change sighed. It really was a bad start. Lin Yi's conditions were really hard to fulfill. He didn't know that this was a condition that Kang Ming had proposed on his own. If he knew, he really would have the urge to strangle Kang Ming to death. Silkworm Change wasn't very good at medicine, so he went to visit the Xianjin ancestor after the call and told him about Kang Ming. "If even Brother Shintian can't do anything about it, naturally I can't," the ancestor said with certainty. "In terms of medical skills, Brother Shintian is much better than me, and he's been immersed in the study of medicine all these years. We really can't do anything about this condition." Chapter 2740. Although alchemists were proficient in medicine and pharmacology, it did not mean that their medical skills were at the peak of perfection. This was because most of their energy was focused on alchemy. Therefore, if one were to say that the person with the highest medical skills in the world was still the generation's divine doctor, Lin Dongfang, who became famous more than 10 years ago. Of course, what made Lin Dongfang's name resound throughout the ancient sects was not his title as a genius doctor, but another terrifying legend. That's the only way. Xian Jin sighed. Let's do our best. If it really doesn't work, I'll call Xian Tianshi. I really can't bring myself to do this. Alright, I'll talk to him now. Silkworm nodded. When Kang Xiaoming received the Silkworm transformation's reply, he was stunned. Even the Xianjin ancestor couldn't do anything? In Kang Mingming's mind, the Xianjin ancestor, who was like a miracle doctor, couldn't do anything? He'd said all those big words. He'd thought that by using Xinyan's illness as a hostage, he'd be able to get the recipe back from Lin Yi without much effort. But who would have thought? Thinking back to what Lin Yi said, that he'd kick him to death if he couldn't cure Xinyan, Kang Mingming was starting to get scared. But no matter how scared he was, he had to continue talking terms with Lin Yi. This was his mission. He couldn't just go back to the Sky Elixir school, could he? Found a way? That's pretty fast. Lin Yi looked at Kang Mingming mockingly. With Lin Yi's Earth-class late-phase strength, he could easily listen in on Kang Mingming's phone call. Lin Yi wasn't the type of person who liked to pry into other people's business, but Lin Yi didn't need to be polite with Kang Mingming. Lin Yi didn't know what was said on the other side of the phone, but he knew that Kang Mingming hadn't thought of a way to cure Wang Xinyan from the look on his face. Lin Yi, it's like this. I've thought about it. Treating Wang Xinyan is a long and arduous process, and it's a bit unfair to exchange it with you. She's my sister-in-law after all, so I'll take my time to treat her. You don't have to pay any price, Kang Mingming explained. So I've decided to treat you for free. Oh, so you don't want the elixir formula anymore? Lin Yi looked at Kang Mingming teasingly. Yes, but I will use something else to exchange with you. Kang Mingming said with a smile. How about it? Am I all right? You idiot. Lin Yi kicked Kang Mingming, causing him to tumble. Are you kidding me? Do you think I don't know that you can't cure her? I've tolerated you for Wang Xinyan. Kang Mingming was kicked by Lin Yi, but he was a sky class. He didn't have any offensive abilities, but he still had some defensive abilities. He only looked a bit haggard but didn't cause too much damage. How could you just kick people like that? I didn't say I can't cure her. Kang Mingming felt guilty. He couldn't beat Lin Yi in a fight. He might be a sky class mid-phase, but he didn't have any offensive skills. Getting help from the Sky Elixir sect was also impossible. The Xianjin ancestor's attitude was clear. He wanted to exchange the elixir formula with Lin Yi, not steal it. Kang Mingming could only grit his teeth and bear with it. He and Lin Yi, who had been tolerating him the whole time, changed positions. Did you think I didn't hear you calling Little Peach? Lin Yi curled his lips. I didn't expect this. Kang Mingming, not bad. You've only been in the Sky Elixir sect for a short while, and you've already hooked up with someone close to the young master? You. Kang Mingming remembered that Lin Yi was a true Earth-class late phase. It was easy for him to hear the voices in the room next door. He couldn't be compared to a Sky-class mid-phase like him. Fine, you've already kicked me. I can't cure her, okay? Zhaolong's face changed. He wanted to use the fact that Kang Mingming had cured Wang Xinyan to attack Lin Yi a little, and build up an image of House Kang in front of Xinyan. He didn't expect Kang Mingming to be such a coward, even after being kicked by Lin Yi. Zhaolong couldn't tell if Lin Yi was sent by the ancient sect, or if Kang Mingming was sent by the ancient sect. He didn't know that Kang Mingming was in a difficult situation. His mission here was to trade with Lin Yi. If he offended Lin Yi and refused to trade with him, then even if the Sky Elixir sect sent masters to rob him, his position in the sect would plummet due to his incompetence. So in order to gain the trust of Silkworm transformation, he had no choice but to compromise. Kang Mingming's 180-degree change in attitude surprised Lin Yi. Could it be that the recipe in his hands was that important to him? Or was it that important to the Sky Elixir sect? From Lin Yi's point of view, he had already given Kang Mingming a recipe, so it wouldn't hurt to give him a similar one. So he easily agreed to Kang Mingming's request. But now Lin Yi was calculating in his heart. It seemed that he could get something good out of this recipe. Oh, if you can't cure it, then you can leave. Lin Yi didn't mention the recipe on purpose and said directly. Don't. If I can't cure it, then let's discuss other ways to trade with you. What do you think? Kang Mingming's face changed. If you can't cure it, then you still want the recipe? Do you think you can rob me just because you're a Sky-class master? Lin Yi glanced at Kang Mingming and said faintly, haven't you heard that I can instantly kill Sky-class masters? I could kill a Sky class early stage when I was at the peak of Earth class mid stage. Now that I'm at the late stage, killing a Sky class mid stage shouldn't be a problem. Killing a piece of trash like you shouldn't be a problem at all. Don't. Linny, boss Linny, let's talk this out. How would I dare to do that? Didn't I say we could talk this out? We're old friends, don't use force so easily. That's not good and it's not civilized. Kong Ming Ming was shocked and quickly said, plus, I'm the 8th elder of the Sky Elixir sect. If you kill me there's no benefit. Sky Elixir sect will definitely come looking for you. Oh, isn't that simple? When they come, I'll give them the recipe and they can make the bone cleansing pill themselves. Why would I need you? If you die then you die. Linny said faintly. Gah. Kong Ming Ming's face turned pale. After hearing Lin Yi's words, his legs started to tremble. He was really afraid that Lin Yi would kill him. According to what Lin Yi said, if the Sky Elixir sect got Lin Yi's recipe as compensation, then they would definitely not pursue this matter anymore. Then wouldn't he die for nothing? Chapter 2741. However, his words sounded a little weak, making people feel that he wasn't confident enough. Xiaolong felt very humiliated. He might as well not have called Kong Ming Ming over. This wasn't the 8th elder of the Sky Elixir sect, he wasn't even a follower in front of Lin Yi. When Kong Ming Ming forced Lin Yi to tell him the recipe, he was feeling pretty good. He thought that he was the main character, but in the blink of an eye, he was back to being a supporting character. He felt so bad that he wanted to turn around and leave. This was too embarrassing. He was just trying to act cool, but Lin Yi scared him to this extent. Haha, Lin Yi smiled. Then tell me, what can you give me in exchange? Meh. What do you want? As long as the Sky Elixir sect has it, we can trade with you. Kong Ming Ming thought about it and said. Oh, then I'll give you a price. A 3rd grade cauldron, a chi gathering pill and an ice heart pill. Lin Yi didn't ask for too much, but these 3 things were already too much. After all, the Sky Elixir sect's final reward for passing the test was only a 3rd grade elixir. Lin Yi asked for 2 at once, and the Sky Elixir sect probably wouldn't agree. After all, the person he was trading with wasn't the brainless Kong Ming Ming, but the Sky Elixir sect. Lin Yi could feel that the young master of the Sky Elixir sect was a wise man. He could ask for something, but if it was too much, the young master wouldn't agree. The reason why they chose to trade with him was probably because they didn't want to rob him. Lin Yi's logic told him that Sky Elixir wouldn't be afraid of him. Sky Elixir probably didn't want to go through too much trouble, and that was why they were willing to trade with him. Lin Yi's offer was just to scare Kong Xiaoming. Kong Ming Ming had been scared by Lin Yi. Lin Yi's ultimate goal was to make Kong Ming promise him something that he could do. As for other things, he couldn't make the decision. As expected, Kong Ming Ming's expression changed slightly. He forced a smile and said, Isn't this too much? Is it a lot? Go treat her then. Lin Yi pointed at Wang Xinyan. Alright, I'll go ask. Kong Ming Ming had no choice but to take the phone to the room next door and call Sky Silkworm. After a while, Xiaoming returned to Boss Bai's office and spoke carefully. Boss Lin Yi, I've asked the young head, but he said that he can only promise you one thing, and that's a 3rd level pill. The cauldron is out of the question and 3rd level pills aren't that easy to make. He can only give you an IOU for this one, and you'll need to prepare your own ingredients. Be it the Ice Heart pill or the Chi Gathering pill, our old ancestor can't make them for the time being. You'll have to wait for half a year before you can start. Lin Yi nodded. Boss Lin Yi, I've asked the young head, but he said that he can only promise you one thing, and that's to give you a 3rd level pill. The Xianjun forefather and Kong Ming Ming could use treasures to recover their strength, but the cost was too high. Sky Silkworm naturally wouldn't agree to Lin Yi's request. Lin Yi frowned. Silkworm wasn't easy to talk to, he'd expected it to be this hard, but he hadn't expected it to be this hard. This person wasn't reckless, and even if he wanted the recipe, he'd control the cost. You don't have it in stock? Then where did you get the Chi Gathering pill? Lin Yi frowned. It's from before. If I had more, then I wouldn't just be a Sky class mid-phase. The Sky Elixir schoolin'. The young master both value the bone cleansing pill a lot and they seem to have some use for it. In order to increase the success rate and quality of the pill, they're willing to pay any price to increase my strength. If there were more Chi Gathering pills, they'd definitely let me use them to level up. Kong Ming Ming said honestly. Towards Lin Yi, he didn't dare to play any tricks, but he almost spilled the beans and revealed the matter of the Xianjun forefather. The identity of the Xianjun forefather was strictly confidential. If Kong Ming Ming were to reveal it, the consequences would be severe. The outside world didn't know that the Sky Elixir School had a relationship with the Xianjin forefather. Oh. Linny nodded his head. It seemed like the bone-cleansing pill was really important to the Sky Elixir School. Otherwise they wouldn't have let Kong Ming Ming take so many experience pills. Then aren't you a Tier 3 alchemist now? Can't you continue refining? No, I just refined the bone-cleansing pill, I can't refine it. Kong Ming Ming said honestly. Furthermore, even if I could refine it, the success rate of refining this kind of pill that I haven't refined before is not high. If you can accept failure and keep providing me with materials, I'm willing to give it a try. Then forget it. Linny didn't believe in Kong Ming Ming's ability. It seemed that the Sky Elixir School wasn't so easy to fool. One pill is too little and it's a futures contract. I don't want to agree. Okay, then I'll ask the young head again. Kong Ming Ming was just a messenger. He didn't have any opinions. He turned around and left the room again to call the Sky Silkworm transformation. About 5 minutes later, Kong Ming Ming came back to Boss Bai's office again. He said to Lin Yi with a bitter face, the young head said that at most one pill. You can provide the materials for the Gathering Chi pill in half a year, and the success is guaranteed. You can provide the materials for the Ice Heart Jade Bone pill, but the success is not guaranteed. The success is still not guaranteed? Lin Yi frowned. Yes, the young head said that this is the greatest sincerity that the Sky Elixir School can offer. It's the same for all these years. If you don't agree, then forget it. The Sky Elixir School can study the elixir recipes themselves. Anyway, this time I only want the elixir recipes to make more money. I can also refine the bone-cleansing pill that I need. They are not determined to get it. Kong Ming Ming conveyed the words of the Sky Silkworm transformation to Lin Yi. However, since you have doubts, to show the sincerity of the Sky Elixir School, we are going to give you a map. What map? Lin Yi asked. Chapter 2742. Haha, so you're saying that you can cheat in the Sky Elixir sex test? If I can cheat, does that mean others can as well? Lin Yi smiled, his tone full of mockery. I'm just a messenger, Lin Yi boss, don't make it hard on me. I've said everything I need to say, so it's up to you whether you agree or not. Kong Ming Ming shrugged helplessly. I really want to complete this mission, but the young master won't let me go. There's nothing I can do. Kong Ming Ming was right. In his phone call with Silkworm, he'd wanted to ask for more equipment, but they didn't agree. Lin Yi, however, heard it. How about this? I'll agree to Sky Elixir's terms, but you have to promise me one more thing. Lin Yi could tell that Kong Ming Ming was trying his best to make this deal happen, but it was understandable. He just joined Sky Elixir, and it was normal for him to want to make a contribution. But the map of Sky Elixir's test was a good thing. Lin Yi didn't think that Silkworm would trade something like this, but it was good as well. It would lessen the danger Lin Yi would have to face in the test with Chikuin, and he wouldn't have to worry about Chikuin getting into trouble. All he needed was the map. What's the condition? Kong Ming Ming asked. Have your brother break off the engagement with Wang Xinyan. Lin Yi said. He'd thought of the condition beforehand. To put it bluntly, everything else was just a cover for Lin Yi, an unexpected windfall. No. Lin Yi, don't go overboard. This is Sky Elixir's business, don't drag House Kong into it. Kong Ming Ming didn't say anything, but Xiaolong panicked. He jumped out and screamed, breaking off the engagement is impossible, I'll never agree to it. Kong Ming Ming wanted to persuade his brother. Women were all fleeting clouds, and once he established himself in Sky Elixir, House Kong would be powerful enough to have all kinds of women. He didn't expect Xiaolong's reaction to be this intense. Yeah, Boss Lin, I'm representing the Sky Elixir sect in this exchange, it's unreasonable for me to sacrifice myself. You've seen my brother's attitude, there's nothing I can do. Xiaolong didn't expect Xiaolong to react this fiercely. Lin Yi was surprised by Xiaolong's attitude. He'd planned it all out, forcing Xiaoming to let him persuade Xiaolong to break off the engagement, but who knew that Xiaolong would suddenly jump out and ruin everything? But Lin Yi underestimated Xiaolong's mood. Xiaolong didn't really care about Wang Xinyan before, but ever since he was in the same class with Xinyan and Lin Yi, his mentality became twisted and twisted. Lin Yi and Xinyan kept provoking him, pushing him into a dead end. If he couldn't get Xinyan, he'd have a mental breakdown. This was a perverted obsession, something normal people couldn't comprehend. Only the people involved could understand this complicated feeling. Then how about this, before we graduate, tell your brother to stop harassing Xinyan. Lin Yi sighed, deciding to go with the next best thing. Well? Kong Ming Ming looked at Xiaolong, but it seemed like Xiaolong still didn't want to agree. Kang Ming had no choice but to drag Xiaolong out of the room. Xiaoming Linny is too much, we can't agree to this. If we agree to this we'll lose face. Xiaolong said angrily. Aren't you the 8th elder of Sky Elixir? Why are you such a coward? Bro, this isn't about being a coward. The problem is that I haven't established myself in Sky Elixir yet. I'm relying on this mission to get the young master's recognition. If I don't complete this mission I'll be marginalized. Kang Ming said helplessly. If I'm marginalized, then Lin Yi will be able to do whatever he wants with House Kong. At that time, don't even mention the condition of not harassing Xinyan. Even if he wants you to break off the engagement, you'll have to grit your teeth and agree to it. Xiaolong wasn't an idiot. He calmed down after Kang Ming explained the reason. He was a black-bellied person, but sometimes he'd let his anger get the better of him. It was like that just now when he thought about how Lin Yi wanted to be with Xinyan officially. Now that he understood Kang Ming's situation, he nodded unwillingly. Alright then, but I want to set 3 rules with Lin Yi. Alright, as long as you agree to it. Kang Ming let out a sigh of relief. Bro, don't worry. Once this mission is completed and my position stabilizes, I'll be able to ride on the young master's coattails. I'll be strong and you can do whatever you want. You can change the rules whenever you want if you're strong enough. That's true. Xiaolong felt much better after listening to Kang Ming's words. He finally nodded reluctantly. That's right. We're holding back for now so that we can step on people more easily in the future. Don't you understand that? Kang Ming said, satisfied. I understand, I'm just a little unsatisfied. Xiaolong said helplessly. Alright, let's go. Kang Ming didn't hide anything when he was talking to Xiaolong. Lin Yi heard it, and he didn't think that Lin Yi wouldn't be able to guess that he wanted revenge even if he didn't say it. The hatred between the two was already set in stone. If Kang Ming didn't take revenge on Lin Yi one day when he had the strength, that would be the real problem. When they arrived at Boss Bai's office, Kang Ming said, Alright Lin Yi, I've talked to my bro. I'll agree to your request, but at the same time, my bro needs to set 3 rules with you. What rules? Lin Yi asked. It's simple. I can stop harassing Wang Xinyan, but Wang Xinyan can't have a relationship with you. That's my bottom line. I don't want my wife to make me a cuckold. Xiaolong said. If you can do it then I'll agree. Oh okay. Lin Yi nodded. He had achieved his goal. It could be said that Lin Yi had achieved his goal through his threat. It could be said that he had returned from a rewarding journey. When Kang Ming called Lin Yi to ask about the recipe, Lin Yi thought about it carefully and realized that when he was setting up another flaw, he accidentally created the flaw Kang Ming was talking about. In layman's terms, it was a bug. It wasn't intentional on Lin Yi's part. Chapter 2743. However, at the same time that the bug was fixed, a new problem arose. The pill formula for the bone and marrow cleansing pill had become a 4th-grade pill formula. In order to fix this bug, part of the refining process required the temperature and intensity of a 4th-grade pill fire to refine the pill. The real bone and marrow cleansing pill was a 4th-level pill, and Lin Yi's original modified recipe was based on the pill of life extension and toxin cleansing. It was a 3rd-level pill, but after Lin Yi modified it, it became a 4th-level pill. As for whether or not Kang Ming could make it after getting the recipe, that wasn't Lin Yi's concern. Something as easy as that was exchanged for a 3rd-level pill option, a map of the Sky Elixir School's trial, and a promise not to harass Xinyan during school. It was worth it. But the Sky Elixir School's Sky Silkworm transformation wasn't easy to talk to, and Lin Yi wasn't able to get much out of it. It seemed that the Sky Elixir School was different from the House of You. They weren't that easy to trick. Then why don't you give me the recipe? Kang Ming was eager to make a contribution. You didn't give me the map of the Sky Elixir School and you didn't promise to make the pill. How am I supposed to give you the recipe? Lin Yi asked. I'll have the Sky Elixir School email the map to your mailbox. You just have to check it, Kang Ming said. As for the promise to make the pill, the Sky Elixir School's promises are always valid. Everyone in the ancient world knows about this, so we have our credibility. Alright then, give me the map first, Lin Yi said. As for promises, I don't really believe in them. You should get them to give me a proof of making the pill so I can have proof in the future. That's fine. I'll ask the Heavenly Elixir sect to issue a certificate of alchemy. Kang Ming nodded readily. Is that okay now? Not yet. I'll give the recipe to Mr. Bai first. With Mr. Bai's guarantee, when I receive the map and the proof, Mr. Bai will naturally give you the recipe. As Lin Yi spoke, he gave the recipe that he had just written to Boss Bai. How do I know if it's real or not? Kang Ming Ming hesitated for a moment before asking. Why don't you ask Teacher Bai? Lin Yi said. All right. Kang Ming Ming turned to look at Boss Bai. Mr. Bai, what do you think? Boss Bai took over Lin Yi's recipe and was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that what Lin Yi wrote was a level 4 recipe, but it also matched the legendary level of the real bone and marrow cleansing pill. Looking at the pharmacology and properties inside, there was no problem. The recipe should be for making the bone and marrow cleansing pill, so Boss Bai nodded and said, it's indeed the recipe for the bone and marrow cleansing pill. There's no problem. That's good. Although Kang Ming Ming didn't know how powerful Boss Bai was, he heard that Shenzhen Ancestor and the Heavenly Silkworm sect admired him very much. So, Kang Ming Ming didn't think much about it. After all, the Heavenly Silkworm sect approved of this exchange. I'll contact the Heavenly Elixir sect right now. Very soon, the Heavenly Silkworm sect sent a map of the Heavenly Elixir sect's trial and a certificate of alchemy from the Heavenly Elixir sect according to the email address that Kang Ming Ming provided. The certificate stated that they could refine the Qi Gathering Pill or the Ice Heart Pill half a year later. The Qi Gathering Pill could guarantee success, but the Ice Heart Pill couldn't. Can you give me the recipe now? Kang Ming Ming asked Lin Yi after doing all this. It's best if you don't tell others about this map. Otherwise, you won't be able to pick a good pill if everyone else passes the trial. You understand? Okay. I'll let Mr. Bai be the supervisor for what your brother promised. If he breaks the promise, Mr. Bai has the right to expel him from the school, Lin Yi said. Is that okay? No. Xiaolong gritted his teeth. Okay, Mr. Bai, you can give them the recipe now, Lin Yi said to Boss Bai. Okay. Mr. Bai gave the recipe to Kang Ming Ming. Kang Xiaoming took the recipe and looked at it carefully. But when he finished, his expression changed. Is this a 4th rank recipe? Kang Xiaoming was shocked. What? Yes, that's right. Lin Yi nodded. It is a level 4 recipe. Then why was the recipe for the bone cleansing pill you gave me a 3rd level pill? Kang Xiaoming asked back. Are you trying to trick me? That's right. The one before was level 3, so it might be flawed. The other one is this. Do you think I can change the recipe whenever I want? Lin Yi frowned. Do you want it? Don't give it back to me. Yes. Kang Ming Ming thought about it. Lin Yi wasn't even an alchemist. How could he change the recipe so easily? Not to mention him, even the old ancestor of the Heavenly Elixir sect and the old ancestor of the Shenzhen sect couldn't do it. If Lin Yi could do it, it would be strange. So, sometimes when you speak the truth, no one will believe you. Kang Xiaoming was like that. He nodded and said, all right, I'll report to the young master. Kang Ming Ming didn't dare to delay. He quickly went to the room next door and dialed the number of the silkworm transformation. Through Little Peach, he found the silkworm transformation. Young master, I'm Little Ming. Kang Ming Ming took a deep breath and said, oh, Little Ming. How is it? Did you get the recipe? The silkworm transformation asked. I got it. This process is really troublesome. Lin Yi wouldn't let go. I had no choice but to agree to his condition. Kang Ming Ming said with a sad face. What? You agreed to his condition without permission? The silkworm transformation's tone suddenly became cold. No, young sect master. Kang Ming Ming quickly explained, I agreed to sacrifice my own interests. It has nothing to do with the Heavenly Elixir sect. It's like this. Lin Yi likes my brother's fiancée, my sister-in-law, so he forced an unfair contract on my brother. Kang Xiaoming exaggerated what Lin Yi said about Wang Xinyan, telling the story to silkworm transformation to show off. He was willing to sacrifice his own interests for the sake of his sect. So, the silkworm transformation nodded. Little Ming, if you really want to work for the sect, the Heavenly Elixir sect won't mistreat you. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Everything is for the sect. Kang Ming Ming said righteously, now that we have the recipe, there's another problem, young master. Chapter 2744. This recipe is a 4th level recipe. It's not the 3rd level recipe from before. There's a step that needs to be completed using a 4th level recipe. I compared it with the previous recipe and found that there's an extra step. Kang Xiaoming analyzed. Oh. Silkworm fell into deep thought after hearing Kang Ming Ming's words. After a while, he said, so that means that the recipe Lin Yi gave us before should be Zhang Liju's simplified version of the bone cleansing pill, and the other one should be the real one. Why is that? Kang Ming Ming paused. He thought that the recipe Lin Yi gave them was flawed. Who would have thought that it was Zhang Liju's simplified version? I'm just guessing. The legendary bone cleansing pill is a level 4 pill, and the one you brought back was a level 3, but it could be concocted, so I didn't suspect anything. Now that I think about it, if Zhang Liju could simplify and improve the qi gathering pill recipe, then why couldn't he do the same for the bone cleansing pill? Silkworm said. Makes sense, but young master, why would there be flaws in his improvements? Kang Ming didn't understand. Lowering the difficulty of the refinement, naturally there would be flaws. Silkworm said, isn't that the same for the qi gathering pill? The real qi gathering pill should be a mystic level 1 pill, and I heard that there are no side effects after ingesting it, and the user can still absorb the qi from the surroundings for training. But the improved qi gathering pill, although a level 3 pill, doesn't allow the user to absorb the qi from the surroundings anymore, and they can only continue to use qi gathering pill to level up. I see. Young master, you're the wiser one, seeing through it right away. I thought Lin Yi was tricking me on purpose. Kang Ming understood. Tricking you? If he could just change the recipe to trick people, then we'd be willing to be tricked. Losing to someone like this isn't a loss, but I don't think that's possible, right? Sky Silkworm didn't believe that Lin Yi had that kind of ability. Ever since Zhang Liju, he hadn't heard of anyone being able to modify and simplify recipes. It was reasonable for the heavenly silkworm transformation to think this way. Although he was proficient in medicine, he wasn't as good as those top-notch miracle doctors. Moreover, top-notch miracle doctors didn't know how to concoct pills, so they naturally couldn't change the recipe. Miracle doctor and elixir refiner at the same time, Zhang Liju was the only one in the past 1,000 years. After all, a person's energy was limited. Who could study alchemy and medicine at the same time? This was also the reason why alchemists generally did not have much attack power. Since he was already studying alchemy, he did not have the time or mind to practice martial skills. Most importantly, refining a single pill would consume a large portion of his physical strength and jinqi. How could he have the energy to cultivate anything else? Lin Yi, on the other hand, was a special existence. Old man Lin had taught him medicine in a perverted and merciless manner since he was young. He also received Zhang Liju's teachings in the tomb. Even if the current Lin Yi wasn't as good as Zhang Liju back then, at least in theory he wasn't far behind. It was just that Lin Yi's experience and knowledge were still lacking. That's true, young master. Can I go back now? Kang Ming didn't want to stay here a second longer. He was here to act cool in front of Lin Yi, but he ended up getting scared by Lin Yi. In the end, he was scared shitless by Lin Yi, and even agreed to something that wasn't very honorable for House Kang. Naturally, Kang Xiaoming wanted to go back as soon as possible. And send the recipe to my email. You can visit your family in Donghai and come back when you're done, Sky Silkworm Transformation said. Okay, thank you, young master, Kang Ming replied quickly. After hanging up, Sky Silkworm Transformation was slightly disappointed. It was actually a level 4 recipe. Now this recipe was a bit useless. In Sky Elixir Sect, no one could make a level 4 pill, not even the Shenzhen ancestor. Sky Silkworm Transformation, as the young master, naturally wouldn't vent his anger in front of Kang Ming. He was just a bit annoyed that this Lin Yi, whom he had never met before, had tricked him. Lin Yi should know that this was a 4th level elixir recipe, and since he knew, he still dared to ask for a 3rd level elixir. Did he think he was an idiot? But, thinking about it, Lin Yi wasn't a refiner, so how could he know about level 3 and 4 pills? But even if he didn't know, how could Han Jingjing or Boss Bai not know? Sky Silkworm Transformation thought about it and felt that Lin Yi was too evil. He remembered this name and was prepared to teach him a lesson when he had the chance. After getting the recipe, Shenzhen was really calm. After looking at it, he sighed and guessed, the steps added to this recipe should be the flaw in the recipe from before. Back then, Zhang Liju wanted to simplify the recipe so that more people could concoct it, but there was this flaw as well. Master, then now. Sky Silkworm Transformation asked carefully. No one knew that the Shenzhen ancestor had a disciple, and this disciple was actually Sky Silkworm Transformation. Not many people in Sky Elixir Sect knew about this, and in 5 Elements Sect only the Shenzhen ancestor knew about it. No wonder Ancestor Shenzhen was so close to the Heavenly Elixir Sect. Could be explained now. It was because of this relationship. Sky Silkworm Transformation would only call the Shenzhen ancestor master when there were no outsiders. At other times he would be like everyone else, calling him ancestor or Shenzhen ancestor. I don't have a choice. Even if I can make this recipe, there won't be the original bone cleansing pill to eat. I can only wait for Kang Ming to make it first, and then I can make it after I eat it. The Shenzhen ancestor smiled. It's fine, it's an unexpected surprise anyway. You can leave first, I'll think about it myself. Yes, master. The Sky Elixir sect leader cupped his fists and left the room. Kong Ming Ming left with Xiaolong. They didn't have the face to stay in Boss Bai's office any longer, but it was good that Kong Ming Ming had completed the Sky Elixir sect's mission and managed to gain a foothold here. Kong Ming Ming's return to House Kong could be considered a return to his hometown. Xinyan sat on the sofa the whole time, not saying a word, but her heart was very complicated. She didn't think that Lin Yi would make these conditions to Kong Ming Ming. It seemed that she was very important to Lin Yi. Chapter 2745. Lin Yi, on the other hand, had been laying out conditions for her to break off the engagement. Although Xiaolong didn't agree, he was forced to make a promise not to harass her at school. Xinyan let out a sigh of relief. Wasn't this what she wanted? She believed that Lin Yi would become even stronger with the buffer time they had at school. Lin Yi dared to challenge Kong Ming Ming now, and the Sky Elixir sect didn't do anything drastic. Xinyan was full of confidence in her and Lin Yi's future. Lin Yi, this recipe. Boss Bai looked at Lin Yi. Only Lin Yi, Xinyan, and Boss Bai were left in the office. Lin Yi didn't hide it since they were all on the same side. I changed that recipe to a 4th rank. The original recipe was also a 4th rank. I mixed it with the recipe for the Pill of Life Extension and Toxin Cleansing to make it a 3rd rank, but I didn't expect there to be a bug like this, so I changed it a bit, but it still can't be avoided. You can change recipes? Boss Bai's eyes widened as he looked at Lin Yi in disbelief, as if he was looking at a monster. He believed that Lin Yi could change recipes, but recipes were much more complicated than normal recipes, and there were many more complicated changes in the properties of the ingredients. Even Boss Bai himself couldn't change recipes as he pleased. Yeah, isn't it the same as changing recipes? It's not difficult at all. Lin Yi nodded. I think Jing Jing can do it too. Boss Bai sucked in a cold breath and shook his head with a bitter smile. Alright, to be honest, I can't. Ugh. Lin Yi paused but said, it's fine, it's easy. We'll just have to look into it later. As Lin Yi and Boss Bai talked, Xinyan fell asleep again. What Lin Yi, Kong Ming Ming, and Xiaolong were talking about was related to her, so she didn't fall asleep at all. Now that things were settled, she fell asleep peacefully. And so Lin Yi quickly used the ingredients Kong Ming Ming brought to brew medicine for Xinyan in Boss Bai's office. At night, when Xinyan woke up, Lin Yi had her drink the medicine, planning to see how it worked tomorrow. But to Lin Yi's disappointment, Boss Bai's medicine seemed to have some effect, but it was only slightly stronger than Lin Yi's. Xinyan was still sleeping and it wasn't helping her get better. Lin Yi didn't know what to do in this situation. Lin Yi had no choice but to call old Lin's number. Before, Lin Yi had planned to solve this problem himself. After all, if old Lin could cure this kind of weakness, he could too. He had already inherited old Lin's medical skills, and old Lin could only make the same medicine as Lin Yi's, unless he raised the level of the ingredients used like Boss Bai's. But these ingredients were usually very precious and hard to get, and even if they were made, they wouldn't be of any use. He really didn't have any other options now, so he could only try and see if old Lin had any other creative ideas. However, when Lin Yi called, he heard a voice saying, "The number you have dialed is not in the service area, or the phone has been turned off. Please try again later." Lin Yi paused. In theory, old Lin's phone would never be turned off. He would turn it on 24 hours a day, and when it ran out of battery he would turn it on and charge it. So Lin Yi was a little confused and worried. What happened to old Lin? Left with no other choice, he called Widow Wang's grocery store at the head of the village. "Aunt Wang, it's me, Lil Yi." Lin Yi said. "Lily? Ah, it's you. You haven't called for a long time. What's wrong?" Aunt Wang asked with a smile. "Aunt Wang, I can't find my grandpa. Can you help me call Air Gooden to go to my house and see if my grandpa is there? If he is, ask him to call me back." Lin Yi said. "Oh, you're looking for your grandpa." Dr. Lin went out early in the morning. He said he had to take the mountain road, so he brought Air Gooden to clear the way to avoid wild beasts. He hasn't come back yet. This time he went a little further. He said he was going to the village behind the mountain. There's no signal there, so he probably won't come back until tomorrow? Widow Wang said. Then I understand. Lin Yi nodded and relaxed. Old Lin told the villagers that he was going to the village, but Lin Yi knew that he was going to the West Star Valley to drink the spring water. It was the spiritual spring water that Air Gooden drank every time. Every once in a while, old Lin would go drink some of the spring water, but only Lin Yi and Air Gooden knew about it. This time he brought Gooden with him, so he must be going to drink the spring water as well. But since he couldn't ask old Lin, Lin Yi could only give up for now. He planned to wait for Wang Xinyan to wake up and talk to her. Should he tell her parents about the current situation? First, to let her parents be mentally prepared. Second, to ask what kind of medicine Wang Xinyan took that year, if she still had the recipe, and if they could find that wandering master again. After Wang Xinyan woke up, Lin Yi told her about his thoughts. Wang Xinyan had no choice but to tell her parents the truth. Although she was afraid that they would be worried if she didn't tell them, if she continued like this, they wouldn't be mentally prepared. And so, one night after school, Wang Xinyan called her parents to the villa in the Shueshang district. Although she said that she had a problem with her body, it was still awkward for her to ask her parents to come to Lin Yi's house. It was like meeting her parents on a blind date. Wang Shubin and Qinlin were also curious. Why would Xinyan suddenly call them to Lin Yi's villa? Naturally, they had some misunderstandings. The two arrived at the villa around 7 at night. As the owner of the villa, Lin Yi, Mengyao, and Yushu naturally accompanied Xinyan to welcome them. Lin Yi smiled and greeted Wang Shubin and Qinlin. Uncle Wang, Auntie Xiao, welcome, please come in. All right. Wang Shubin and Qinlin nodded politely. After all, they had discussed and agreed to respect their daughter's opinion, but their daughter was still Xiaolong's fiancée. They couldn't treat Lin Yi like a son-in-law. The two entered the villa and sat in the living room. Mengyao and Yushu went to pour some tea and sat on the side. They weren't strangers to Wang Shubin and Qinlin, having met them before when Xinyan was kidnapped. Chapter 2746. Ah. Qinlin and Wang Shubin blinked. They came here thinking that Wang Xinyan was going to talk to them about Lin Yi's situation. They didn't expect her to talk about some problem with her body instead. What was going on here? I've been lacking energy lately and I like to get sleepy. I can't seem to wake up even when I'm at school. Xinyan didn't tell them that Lin Yi was the reason for this. I wasn't living with Lin Yi when I was living here, but he was healing me, helping me with my health. What? Sleeping? Wang Shubin and Xiao Qinlin looked at each other, their eyes flashing with shock and worry at the same time. Mom, Dad, Lin Yi checked my body and he came to a conclusion, there's nothing wrong with my body, except that it's getting weaker and weaker. Xinyan sighed. I didn't want to tell you guys at first, I didn't want you to worry, but if Lin Yi can cure it, then it'll be great and we'll pretend like nothing happened. Your body's getting weaker? Qinlin and Wang Shubin frowned worriedly as they looked at each other again, their faces turning pale. Mom, Dad, what's wrong? Xinyan jumped at the change in her parents' faces. It's not like there's no way Lin Yi's trying to help me, Xinyan? Wang Shubin said after a moment of silence. This problem of yours is something you were born with. It's a symptom that manifested itself when you were young. We've taken you to many hospitals, but none of them could do anything about it. An old Chinese doctor took a look at you too and said that you wouldn't be able to live for long? Yeah, I guessed it. Xinyan nodded, not minding it. But didn't a master cure me? If he could do it back then, he should be able to do it now, right? Yes. Uncle Wang, what Xinyan said before was actually to give you a heads up, to tell you about her physical condition. The real reason why Xinyan and I called you here is to ask about the wandering expert you met before. Can we still contact them? Lin Yi asked. Then how can we contact him? Wang Shubin could not help but smile bitterly. At first, we wanted to ask for the master's contact information, but a sage-like friend beside the master said something inexplicable. Strange words. Lin Yi and Xinyan asked at the same time. What did he say? He said that he has sowed good karma today. 18 years later, everything will have karma, and we will meet again if we are fated. Wang Shubin remembered the words of the master and his friend very clearly. Then they left. I can't force them to stay. 18 years later? Everything has a cause and effect? Lin Yi was stunned, then his expression changed. How old was Xinyan at that time? She was 2 years old at that time? Wang Shubin seemed to have thought of something as he said this. His face turned pale. Could it be that the master meant that after 18 years Xinyan will? This year. Isn't Xinyan 20 years old? Isn't it 18 years later? Xiao Qinlin listened to Wang Shubin's analysis, and her face was pale as well. Her body was trembling uncontrollably. Could it be that the master meant that Xinyan would still leave after 18 years? Lin Yi thought of this possibility as well, but at this time he could only try to calm them down. Uncle Wang and Xiao, don't panic. I don't think that's what the master meant. Maybe he meant that you will meet him again after 18 years, or maybe you can find another solution. After calming down, Lin Yi was a little doubtful. Perhaps the master meant that Xinyan's body would have problems after 18 years, but from another perspective, if Lin Yi hadn't met Xinyan and used her fragrance to train, wouldn't Xinyan still be alive and well? Wouldn't there be any problems? In other words, the master might have just said it offhandedly, but if he could predict that he'd appear 18 years later and take Xinyan's fragrance, wouldn't that be a little too scary? Another way? Wang Shubin sighed. What other way is there? It's not like we didn't think of a way back then. Even you didn't have a way, so what other way could there be? Your medical skills, Aunt Xiao and I have heard of it, is one of the best in the world. For example, did the master say what the prescription was, or what the name of the medicine was? Lin Yi asked. No, the elixir was decocted by that master, and the elixir was obtained by that master's friend. We don't know the name of the elixir. Wang Shubin shook his head and smiled bitterly. If I knew the name of the elixir and the content of the formula, I wouldn't be so depressed. I'd have to buy the elixir and the elixir even if I had to sell everything I have. That master didn't leave anything else aside from that? Lin Yi asked, unwilling to give up. Yes, right. Wang Shubin stood up all of a sudden and turned to Xinyan. Xinyan, where's your jade? You didn't take it off, did you? You've been wearing it all this time, haven't you? No. Xinyan looked at Wang Shubin strangely before pulling the jade out of her collar. I've been wearing this since I was young and I've gotten used to it. It never leaves my body even when I'm showering or sleeping. Xinyan suddenly let out a cry of surprise. Wang Shubin and Qin Lin, on the other hand, gasped at the sight of the jade as well. Their eyes were filled with shock and worry. What's wrong? Lin Yi didn't know what was going on, and looked at the shocked family curiously. Xinyan, why did your jade change color? Wang Shubin asked, shocked. I think so too, the color seems to have lightened a lot. Xinyan hadn't reacted as strongly as Wang Shubin. After all, she'd seen the jade all the time. She didn't have much of a reaction to the change, but today, under the light, she too felt that the color had lightened. Chapter 2747. This jade. Xinyan couldn't help but wonder how much her parents valued the jade. This jade. Does it have anything to do with my body? When she was young, her parents only told her that the jade was a memento, and that she had to wear it all the time. She didn't really know what it was used for. This jade pendant was left behind by that expert. He said that if you wear this jade pendant, you will be safe in the future. Wang Shubin said. That's why I've always had you wear it. You were young back then, so I didn't explain it to you and I forgot about it later on. I only told you about the medicine. I've been wearing this jade all this time, there's no way it could have been swapped. Xinyan shook her head. The only time this jade had ever had a problem was when she'd been targeted by a robber on a school trip, but Xiaolong's appearance had diverted the robber's attention. She'd been wearing it ever since and she'd never taken it off. Wang Shubin picked up Xinyan's jade and examined it carefully. After a while he shook his head. The jade is still the same but the color has changed. Could it be that this jade is a sign of something? Doesn't that mean our Xinyan Xiao Qinlin's face paled. Uncle Wang, Auntie Xiao, don't think too much about it. The jade changing color might not be a sign of something, it could be something else. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't think that Xinyan's jade was a sign of anything, but it was a possibility that seemed impossible. But it was a possibility that he could only discuss with Xinyan in private. Something else. Wang Shubin shook his head helplessly. You don't need to talk us out of it. Actually, your Auntie Xiao and I were prepared to lose Xinyan 18 years ago. It's just that this day has come a little too late. Happiness is too short. Qin Lin, on the other hand, was silent, but her eyes were filled with sadness. She never would have thought that Xinyan's illness would come back. Uncle Wang, don't say such depressing things. I'll do my best to cure Xinyan. Cure Xinyan's problem. Lin Yi said, don't worry, I will definitely give you a healthy Xinyan. Lin Yi was filled with guilt regarding Xinyan's situation. He wouldn't have let something happen to Xinyan if he hadn't been greedy for power and wanted to train faster. It could be said. Xinyan had died from the aroma he'd absorbed, and so he had to find a way to solve this problem no matter how difficult it was. Lin Yi was already giving it his all for Xiao Xiao's condition, but for Wang Xinyan's condition, Lin Yi had to work even harder than Xiao Xiao. Because of Wang Xinyan. It was all his own fault. Let's hope so. Wang Shubin seemed to have aged a great deal in that instant. His smile was filled with bitterness. Lil, I'll have to trouble you then. Your aunt and I are going to pack up and sell the company. I'm going to bring her back to the place where we met the master. Let's see if we can meet him again. Didn't he say? 18 years later, will we meet again? Xiao Qinlin nodded as well. She looked at Xinyan, her eyes shining with reluctance. Xinyan, from now on you and Lin Yi can be together. Do whatever you want as long as you're happy. Don't worry about anything, Mom. What are you talking about? Xinyan blushed at Qinlin's words. I'm not really dying. Lin Yi will definitely have a way, right Lin Yi? Xinyan winked at Lin Yi as she spoke. Yeah, Uncle Wang and Xiao, don't worry. I'll do my best. How about I go with you guys to the place where you met the master? Lin Yi asked. Bring Xinyan too. That way if we meet the master we can deal with Xinyan's problem immediately. That's fine, but it's very far from here. I don't want to delay your studies. Wang Shubin said. Where is it? We have a car now, it's very convenient. Should we take a plane if it's too far? Lin Yi asked. It's a small village not too far from Yaojiang. I remember it's called West Star Mountain Village. Wang Shubin said. Wow. Lin Yi's eyes widened as if he had been struck by lightning when Wang Shubin said the village's name. His heart was filled with all sorts of emotions, shock, but more than anything else he was happy and excited. West Star Mountain Village. Wasn't that his hometown? And the master there. There hadn't been any other master other than old Lin in all these years, had there? Mengyao and Yushu, on the other hand, were staring at Lin Yi in disbelief as well. Xinyan's family, on the other hand, didn't know what was going on as they looked at Lin Yi, Mengyao, and Yushu. You guys? What's wrong? Xinyan asked. Xinyan sis, you're saved. Yushu said excitedly. The master Uncle Wang and Aunt Xiao met his most likely Shield Bro's grandfather. Ah? Lin Yi's grandfather? Xinyan turned to Lin Yi, shocked as well. Wang Shubin and Xiao Qinlin were even more dumbfounded, not knowing what to say as they looked at Lin Yi with a strange expression on their faces. Pho. Lin Yi let out a long sigh of relief, feeling as if he'd been searching high and low for something. So that master was old Lin? But if old Lin could cure Xinyan's problem, why couldn't Lin Yi do it himself? Logically speaking, Lin Yi had inherited all of old Lin's medical skills. Lin Yi, is what Shu said true? Qinlin asked excitedly as she looked at Lin Yi. It should be, but I need to confirm it first. Lin Yi took out his phone and quickly logged into his photo album, downloading a couple of pictures and handing them to Wang Shubin and Qinlin. You guys confirm that this is the master who gave you the elixir and the jade pendant back then? Is this the person who gave you the elixir and the jade? Wang Shubin took Lin Yi's phone with trembling hands, almost dropping it from the excitement he felt. Chapter 2748. Yes, it's him. He's the master from back then. Wang Shubin said excitedly to Lin Yi. Is he really your grandfather? If it's him, then he's the old man in my house. You can say that he's my grandfather since he said that we're not related by blood. I was adopted. Lin Yi shrugged and smiled, his tone relaxed. As long as this person was confirmed to be old Lin, the rest would be easy. Lin Yi just had to wait for him and Gooden to come back from the fountain and call him. Lin Yi, then I'll leave this to you. When do we leave? Wang Shubin was impatient. He couldn't wait to bring Xinyan to see Lin Yi's grandfather and treat her. There's no rush, my grandfather went to the neighboring village for a few days and hasn't come back yet. I'll contact him when he comes back, Lin Yi said. That's good, that's good. Wang Shubin didn't think that things would end up in such a dramatic way. The master was Lin Yi's grandfather. This made him even more inclined to let Xinyan and Lin Yi be together. After all, if it weren't for Lin Yi's grandfather, Xinyan would have died a long time ago. This time, they still had to rely on Lin Yi's grandfather. Xinyan's life would belong to the Lin family. Marrying Lin Yi was a very reasonable thing to do. Uncle Wang, Auntie Xiao, it's getting late. Do you want to sleep here or? Lin Yi asked. If you want to rest here, I'll prepare a guest room for you. It's fine, let's go back. It's not far. We feel much better knowing that Xinyan is fine. Qinlin smiled. Lily, I'll leave Xinyan in your hands. You can't let anything happen to her. I'll do my best, Lin Yi nodded with a smile. Xinyan was very happy as well. She thought that she was hopeless. But who would have thought that Lin Yi's grandfather was her savior all those years ago? Didn't that mean that she could be saved again? Everything has its cause. 18 years later. Xinyan suddenly remembered what that friend of Lin Yi's grandpa had said. She couldn't help but be shocked. Could it be that he'd foreseen that he'd be with Lin Yi 18 years later? Could it be that he'd met Lin Yi's grandfather again because of the danger? It seemed like that was the case. Xinyan felt that it was a miracle, but a master was naturally a miracle. She couldn't use common sense to judge him. Wang Shubin and Xiao Qinlin looked at Lin Yi, then at their daughter. They seemed to have realized the same thing as well, and their eyes were filled with shock and amazement. The two were relieved and naturally left. Haha, Shield Bro, you can keep training now. Yushu said happily after Wang Shubin and his wife left. I'm afraid I can't do it now, I'll have to wait for the old man to come back. I'll give him a call and ask. Lenny said. That's true. Yushu nodded before turning on the TV. Wait, I still have something to say. Lenny waved his hand, stopping Yushu from turning on the TV. Oh, what is it? Yushu put down the TV remote curiously. Xinyan, let me see your jade. Lenny said. Yo, can you just look at it like that? Xinyan said, a little embarrassed. I've been wearing it since I was young and the coil is a little small, and the red string is a dead knot. I can't untie it. I'd have to pull it off if I wanted to take it off. With that, Xinyan stood up and bent down in front of Lin Yi, showing him the jade. But the first thing that jumped into Lin Yi's eyes wasn't the jade, but the 2 jade rabbits on her chest. Xinyan had been wearing loose clothes lately in order to let Lin Yi train smoothly. She didn't wear a bra either, so when she lowered her head, he could see her breasts through her collar. Before, Wang Su had walked over to look at the jade, so naturally there wouldn't be a problem. But Lin Yi just sitting there and looking at it was a huge problem. Lin Yi's heart raced as he picked up Xinyan's jade, trying to hide his awkwardness. Xinyan, however, seemed to have realized something at that moment. She wanted to stand up, but the jade was already in Lin Yi's hands and she couldn't stand up. She could only lower her body and let Lin Yi see her breasts. It wasn't the first time he'd seen it and he'd even touched it before. She'd be with Lin Yi anyway, it wasn't like she planned on being with anyone else. Xinyan started comforting herself. Shield bro's so perverted. Yushu, who was sitting beside Lin Yi, noticed the secret at the collar. Xinyan's face reddened instantly, and she wanted to dig a hole in the ground to hide in. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was even more embarrassed. Perverted what? Did you forget that you were trying to seduce Lin Yi with your papayas naked? Meng Yao glared at Yushu, telling her not to interrupt. Oh. Yushu stuck her tongue out, not daring to say anything else. Xinyan, on the other hand, was a little puzzled. Yushu seduced Lin Yi before? Did Lin Yi take the bait? She didn't feel embarrassed anymore when she thought about other people. Lin Yi was a little confused at first, but his attention shifted to the jade as he studied it. He was deeply attracted to it. Lin Yi felt that Xinyan's jade gave him a familiar feeling when he was robbed on the bus, but he didn't pay much attention to it at the time. Now that he studied it, he realized that it was very similar to the one Lin Yi had on him. The material of the jade was a little inferior, but the craftsmanship gave Lin Yi a sense of déjà vu. It was exactly the same as the one he had on him. The only difference was that this jade seemed to be a simplified version of the one he had on him, or more accurately, a prototype that hadn't been completed yet. His jade pendant was of a much higher quality than Xinyan's, be it the material, the carvings, or the feel of it. Xinyan's pendant was simple, but he felt as if the two were made by the same person. Could it be that his jade wasn't unique? Wasn't his jade found in the Xianyuan's cave in the West Star Cave? Or could it be that old Lin had found a similar jade around here and gave it to Xinyan? Remember our website. Chapter 2749. Lin Yi couldn't make sense of this chain of coincidences. Was there some sort of secret behind all this? He thought back to when he gave the jade and the art of dragon mastery to old Lin in the Xianyuan cave. Old Lin didn't say anything and only told him to practice. Could it be that he was hiding something? He shook his head and turned his eyes back to the jade. Xinyan, this jade of yours is probably a treasure that provides energy to your body. The reason why the jade's color is fading is probably because the energy is being drained out of it. It's a little similar to the energy stone Sun Jingyi and I found in the Woolenhape Mountains. The color of an energy stone would darken after releasing its energy. Of course, this is just my guess. You'll have to ask my old man about the specifics. Xinyan was very happy at this moment. She forgot her embarrassment and said, if we can solve this problem, then you can practice all you want in the future. You don't have to worry about me anymore. That's true, but before I get in touch with my old man, I don't want to. Lin Yi shook his head with lingering fear. If it wasn't for this series of coincidences, Xinyan might not have had any hope. Lin Yi would live in self-blame and guilt for the rest of his life. Shield bro, I think you have a jade like that? Yushu had seen Lin Yi shirtless before, and remembered that he had a jade on him as well. Yeah, I have one too. But it's a little different from Xinyan's. Lin Yi didn't go into details about the secret of the jade. He didn't want to expose it for now. Oh, Yushu just mentioned it casually. She didn't pay much attention to it. While they were talking, Lin Yi's phone suddenly rang. Lin Yi looked at the caller ID. It was old Lin. Lin Yi quickly walked into his room and picked up the phone. Old man, you're back from drinking water? Linny asked anxiously. Yep, you're back. Why are you looking for me? Old Lin asked. You even called Widow Wang's grocery store at the entrance of the village. Is there something urgent? Yes, it's urgent. Linny said anxiously. 18 years ago, didn't you treat a little girl? Old Lin was speechless. I've treated too many little girls. I'm the only doctor in this area. How could I remember so many of them? Is there a problem? No. What I mean is, there is a rather special one. Not only did you treat her, you even gave her a jade pendant. Linny quickly explained. Old man Lin paused, then immediately remembered the person Linny was talking about. That's right, I remember this person. I met him when I was picking herbs with an old friend in the valley. How did you know? It's a long story. I have a friend named Wang Xinyan. I met her the first time I came to Songshan. When I first came to Songshan, I met her on the train. Linny said, then told old Lin about how he met Wang Xinyan and what happened after that. Now that's the situation. If I knew you were the one who treated her, I would have looked for you earlier. I wouldn't have waited until now. Old Lin listened to Lin Yi's words, but he didn't respond immediately. Instead, he fell into silence. After a long time, old Lin finally said, What if? I said I couldn't do anything? You couldn't do anything? Lin Yi froze on the spot. He even thought he heard wrong. Old man, what did you say? Didn't you treat her back then? The medicine I gave her was actually just a normal medicine, similar to the one you made. Old Lin smiled bitterly and told the truth. The medicine was only supplementary. The key was the herb and the jade. Weren't you the one who gave her the elixir and the jade pendant? Linny asked anxiously. I did, but the herb and the jade aren't mine. They're someone else's. Old Lin sighed and said, Your previous guess was right. That jade pendant was actually a trial product. It was made by the same person as your jade pendant, but this person is no longer on this planet. Wah? Lin Yi's eyes widened. Not on this planet? What do you mean? Already dead? No. It's a long story and you don't need to know the details right now. All you need to know is that this person won't give you the jade anymore. Old Lin said. Without the jade and the herb, her lifespan will only be extended for another year or so. 1 year. Then what about the herb after a year? Linny asked. Let's not talk about whether or not we can find the elixir. Even if we can find it, the effect will be greatly reduced. I'm talking about the effect of the first time. In fact, the second time should be less than a year. After that, the effect will become less and less. Old Lin said, So, this is not the best solution. Then what do we do with the jade? Linny regretted it very much. His greed for training had led to this result. There's nothing I can do about the jade pendant for now. If you hadn't forcefully absorbed the energy within that jade pendant, it would have been enough for her to use for the rest of her life. You forcefully absorbed the fragrance from her body, causing the jade pendant to continuously replenish her energy, so the jade pendant was quickly used up. Old Lin explained. That. What about your friend? Does he have a solution? Linny asked. He doesn't have one and he's not the jade's creator. Old Lin said. Actually, Wang Xinyan's constitution is very special. I've studied it before and her constitution is even more special than Xiao Xiao's. Then what's the result of your research? Linny said, panicking. I gave the jade to her and I stopped studying it after that. Old Lin said honestly. Linny was a little speechless. He didn't want to give up. Is there really no other way? Then can I give my jade pendant to her? The jade is a one-time use, you can't use it. Other people can't use yours and you can't use hers either. Old Lin said. You don't have to think about that. So you knew about the jade from the start? This was the first time Linny knew that the jade was a one-time use. Chapter 2750. At this point, Old Man Lin paused for a moment as if he suddenly thought of something and hurriedly said, Oh, right after she takes the elixir she can use a small qi-gathering pill or some other pure energy elixir to prolong her life. Although it won't last long, this is the only way I can think of. A small qi-gathering pill. Lin Yi's lips twitched. This pill was priceless, but it couldn't extend her lifespan for long. It was a bottomless pit. But there was no other way. Lin Yi gritted his teeth. It seemed like he'd have to work harder to make pills for Han Jingjing in the future. But don't worry, I'll help you look into it. I can't let my granddaughter-in-law die, can I? Old Lin comforted with a smile. Haha. Linny smiled as well. He didn't know why, but Linny trusted Old Lin very much. It was a strange kind of trust. Sometimes when he was in trouble, Old Lin's words would always calm him down. Right, will my jade ever run out of energy? Linny suddenly thought of his own jade. He used it for training every day, and that strange thing that appeared out of nowhere had taken over his jade, fighting for the energy within it. If his jade was the same as Wang Xinyan's, wouldn't it run out of energy very quickly? Oh, yours won't. Old Lin shook his head. Wang Xinyan's was a trial product, flawed. Yours, on the other hand, is perfect. The energy in your jade is... Oh, to put it simply, you just need to know that it's endless. I see. Linny let out a breath of relief. Let's not talk about the jade for now. How do I get it? Spirit medicine. Old man Lin hesitated for a moment before falling silent again. What is it? Old man. Is that spirit medicine hard to find as well? Linny frowned. Spirit medicine is hard to find. Old Lin didn't know how to explain this to Linny. He didn't know if he should tell Linny. Then, there must be a way to find it, right? Where did that elixir of yours come from? Linny asked. Back then? Old man Lin didn't continue. Instead, he fell into deep thought. That elixir came from the Snowy Valley, but it was Little Yi's master who personally went to the Snowy Valley to ask for it. But as time passed, after so many years, Little Yi's master had already left. Old man Lin wouldn't be able to use the same method he used in the past to snatch another spirit herb. He couldn't leave West Star Mountain Village, and even if he did, without Master Yi's cooperation, he wouldn't be as intimidating as he was back then. There were some things that Linny didn't know yet. Old man Lin had made him develop a sense of dependence too early, which wasn't good for his growth. Just as Mo Kongwen had said, Lin Yi, who grew through training, would receive more benefits than he could imagine. Now that Lin Yi was growing step by step, it also proved what Mo Kongwen had said in the past. In fact, Mo Kongwen was right. There was never a time when it was wrong. Back then, when he told Old Man Lin about Wang Xinyan's karma after 18 years, Old Man Lin found it strange. But he didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, 18 years later, Wang Xinyan would become Lin Yi's girlfriend. But now, Old Man Lin didn't tell him about the Snowy Valley, not because he wanted to hide what happened back then, but because Tang Yun was in the Snowy Valley. Old Man Lin didn't know how to tell Lin Yi. Should he tell him? Or should he not tell him? If he told him, would he meet Tang Yun after he went there? Would there be any negative consequences and effects because of this? Old man, what's wrong? Why did you stop halfway through your sentence? Linny asked curiously. It's nothing, I was just thinking about the name of that elixir. It's been too long, I just remembered it now, Old Man Lin said. Oh, what's it called? Linny didn't suspect anything. That elixir's name is Jade Orchid Jasper Grass. This elixir grows in the ancient sect Snowy Valley, it's very rare. Old Man Lin gritted his teeth and told Linny. He couldn't keep it a secret forever, could he? Of course, Old Man Lin didn't know about Mrs. Tang's feat in the Snowy Valley yet. If he did, he wouldn't have told Linny but Meng Yao. Ancient sect Snowy Valley? Linny paused. Wasn't that the sect of Zhang Liju's old lover? It seemed like they had some sort of history. However, he didn't know how to ask for this stock of spiritual medicine. Old man, how did you get your elixir back then? Your master did it, I don't know, Old Man Lin said. I see. Linny nodded, not thinking much about it. If his master could get it, then it shouldn't be a problem for him, right? Plus, Linny had the sky-class weapon that the founder of the Snowy Valley had used. Even if the Snowy Valley didn't want to trade, they could trade with him. But wasn't it too much of a loss to trade a sky-class weapon for an elixir? Linny wondered if he should get more things from the Snowy Valley. That's all I know. Snowy Valley, if you want to go, you better discuss it with Meng Yao and the others. Old Man Lin reminded. Oh, okay. Linny didn't mind, thinking that Old Man Lin meant that there would be no one to protect them if he left. After hanging up, Linny was half happy and half worried. He was happy that Xinyan's situation was temporarily alleviated, but he was worried that the jade pendant was the ultimate solution, but the person who made it wasn't on this planet. What was going on? How is it? Is there a way? Meng Yao asked when she saw Linny walk out of the room. There is, but I need to go out and get the elixir. Linny didn't want to worry them, so he kept the jade a secret. The medicine the old man made is pretty much the same as mine, the only difference is the elixir. I'm going to get it in a couple of days and Xinyan's problem will be solved. Shield bro, are you going back to West Star Village? Yushu asked. No, I'm going to another ancient sect. The old man doesn't have this elixir. Linny shook his head. I've told you about this sect before, it's called Snowy Valley. What? Snowy Valley. Yushu and Meng Yao gasped at the same time, and Xinyan's eyes went wide. You're going to Snowy Valley? Chapter 2751. Oh, it's nothing, I just feel that it's dangerous. You see, the trip to the Ice Palace didn't go well either, we're a bit worried. Yushu said. That's not a problem. My strength isn't enough to scare the ancient sects, but I have the right to talk to them. Plus, I have a trump card, a sky-class weapon from the founder of the Snowy Valley. They'll have to trade with me no matter what. Linny didn't feel the pressure from the Ice Palace this time. Linny was too weak back then, but in the blink of an eye, Linny had grown. He wasn't as weak as he used to be. Mengyao wanted to tell him that he didn't even need to go to the Snowy Valley to exchange for it. He could just talk to Tang Yun or Mrs. Tang and he would be able to get the herb. But she couldn't. She couldn't. It wasn't realistic to say that Wang Shubin got all the herbs from the Snowy Valley. Wang Shubin was just a normal merchant. How could he get in touch with the ancient sects? But it was even more unrealistic to say that he had a friend in the Snowy Valley. Lin Yi basically knew the relationship between the two. It was too sudden to have a friend from the Snowy Valley. So Mengyao, Yushu and Xinyan didn't know what to say to Lin Yi. Of course, they didn't care if Lin Yi used a sky-class weapon to trade for the herb, but they didn't want him to meet Tang Yun. When do you plan to go? Mengyao had no choice but to ask. After all, there was no way to stop this. The sooner the better. Lin Yi said, if there's nothing important, I'll leave tomorrow. Tomorrow? That's so soon. Mengyao didn't have any reason to stop him, so she gave Yushu a look. Shield bro, Shu misses you a little, can you leave a few days later? Yushu was usually the one with the most excuses, but even she was stunned now. She couldn't find an excuse to make Lin Yi stay. Lin Yi looked at the two curiously. Yao Shu, what's wrong? The earlier I go, the earlier I can treat Xinyan, wouldn't that be better? Why do you have to go so late? Yushu had no choice but to turn to Xinyan for help. Oh, it's like this. Yao Yao and Shu are actually doing this for my sake. Xinyan was the last to speak. Isn't Kang Xiaoming back? She thought of an excuse. He hasn't left yet. Shu is afraid that if you leave, he will come looking for trouble again. So Shu wants to wait for Kang Mingming to go back. Go to the Snow Valley again. Oh, I see. Xinyan's words made sense. He nodded. All right, we'll wait a few days then. Mengyao and Yushu let out a breath of relief at the same time. They admired Xinyan a little. Yushu wanted to say something. Big sister Xinyan, you're so smart. At night, Lin Yi slept alone while Mengyao, Yushu and Xinyan went upstairs to rest. Lin Yi couldn't train for now and Xinyan couldn't sleep with Lin Yi anymore. She hadn't officially agreed to be Lin Yi's girlfriend yet, so Lin Yi would be embarrassed if they slept together. They went upstairs. The three breathed a sigh of relief, but at the same time they were worried. Tang Yun was in the Snow Valley, and they thought that Lin Yi and the Snow Valley wouldn't have anything to do with each other in this life. They didn't expect that Lin Yi would go to the Snow Valley again. What do we do? Why hasn't Tang Yun called back yet? Mengyao frowned worriedly. Back then, Kang Xiaobo didn't have the chance to ask Tang Yun about Tang Yuqi's situation. He said that Tang Yun would call back, but she never did. But this is also a good thing. If Tang Yun sis calls us these 2 days, we can tell her that Shield Bro is going to Snow Valley. She'll be prepared and won't be exposed, Yushu said. That's true, I hope she can call back in a few days. Mengyao sighed helplessly. If it doesn't work, we can only leave it to fate. I'm really sorry, it's all because of me, otherwise Lin Yi wouldn't be able to go to the Snow Valley? Xinyan said apologetically. What does it have to do with you? If Lin Yi didn't suck away all your energy, you wouldn't be like this. Mengyao shook her head. I'm just worried that he'll remember Tang Yun, and then things will get troublesome. With his current strength, he won't be able to fight against the Snow Valley. Xiao Xiao went to the Ice Palace to save her life, but Tang Yun went to the Snow Valley because of Lin Yi. The two are different. I'm afraid that Lin Yi will cause trouble in the Snow Valley. I don't think so, even if Tang Yun sees Shield Bro, she won't reunite with him, so we don't need to worry too much. Yushu was the first to calm down. Yao Yao, we were too worried. Shu's right, we were too worried. Xinyan let out a breath of relief. So what if Lin Yi goes to the Snow Valley? Tang Yun won't even reunite with him, and the others won't say anything either. That's true, Mengyao nodded, and the others didn't think too much, preparing to shower and sleep. After returning to his room, Lin Yi didn't sleep right away, but went straight into the Jade Space. Although he didn't have Xinyan's help, he still had to continue his training. Jiao Lao, were you made by someone? Lin Yi looked at Jiao Yazi, who wasn't far away and couldn't help but ask. What? Jiao Yazi blinked. What do you mean made by someone? I'm just a soul clone that was created by someone else. What I'm saying is that you were made in the recent decades. Lin Yi had always thought that Zhao Yazi's jade came from the ancient times, or even further back, but after hearing old Lin's words, it didn't seem like that was the case. This jade seemed to have been made in the recent decades because the person who made it knew old Lin. I'm not sure about that, but like I said, my memories are sealed and I can only wake up when you get stronger. If you don't, I can't do anything, Zhao Yazi said. As expected. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. Right, there's one more thing. I've been so busy with Xinyan stuff that I didn't get the chance to ask you. Does the ethereal element in me come from the art of dragon mastery? Chapter 2752. After adjusting his condition, Lin Yi started channeling the 9th form of Frenzy Fist. When he was done, Lin Yi changed the method of activation to the 5 elements 8 trigrams palm. Unfortunately, the technique failed at the last moment, and Lin Yi didn't succeed in activating it. Lin Yi could clearly feel that the 9th form of Frenzy Fist was channeling smoothly, but at the last moment he changed the method of activation. It was as if the chi in his body wasn't enough to support the release of the technique, and so it failed. It seemed like his chi wasn't enough to support the activation of the 9th form of Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm. Lin Yi was a little disappointed, but he wasn't surprised. With his Earth-class late phase strength, it was a little too shocking for him to activate the 15th form of a Sky-class technique. After all, the 15th form of a Sky-class technique could only be used by someone at least Sky-class mid-phase. For the time being, the 9th form of Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm was enough. With that thought in mind, Lin Yi continued to train with peace of mind. The next morning, Mengyao Yushu and Xinyan didn't expect that Kang Mingming would actually leave Donghai and return to the Sky Elixir sect. This news came from Xiaolong, so naturally it couldn't be false. Kang Mingming asked Xiaolong to pass a letter to Lin Yi. In the letter he told Lin Yi not to go against House Kang anymore. Even if it wasn't for the sake of the monk, it was for the sake of the Buddha. He, Kang Mingming, was an elder of the Sky Elixir sect after all, and Lin Yi shouldn't go too far. Of course, from Lin Yi's point of view, this letter was actually Kang Mingming giving in and begging for mercy. It was only because of his identity. It wasn't as obvious as it was written. But even if Kang Mingming didn't say anything, Lin Yi didn't plan on going against House Kang. House Kang's medical company was completely shut down, and there was no conflict of interest with Lin Yi. As long as Xiaolong kept his word and stopped using Xinyan's family as her fiancé, Lin Yi naturally wouldn't do anything to him. Lin Yi had Xiao Xiao's background, but Lin Yi knew his place best. His relationship with the Ice Palace was very subtle. Bing Tang didn't think much of Lin Yi. Lin Yi could borrow the Ice Palace's name, but it wasn't practical for her to actually help Lin Yi. So Lin Yi didn't have any advantage against the Sky Elixir sect. Naturally, Lin Yi wouldn't do something so strenuous and unrewarding. After learning that Kang Mingming had left, Lin Yi told Qintian and Zhuang Niadeo to protect Mingyao and the others. He then went to Boss Bai and asked for a day off, preparing to go to Snowy Valley. Mingyao, Yushu and Xinyan were helpless. They didn't think that Xinyan's plan would only buy them a day. Lin Yi still had to go to Snowy Valley. That night after school, Lin Yi, Mingyao, Yushu, Xinyan, Han Jingjing and the others returned to the villa. Lin Yi started packing his luggage, preparing to go to Snowy Valley. Kang Xiaobo had just returned from Snowy Valley, and Lin Yi was preparing to go there again. One in front and one in back, it was quite dramatic. Shield bro, after you get that jade orchid grass, come back soon. I miss you so much. Yushu stood at the door and said to Lin Yi reluctantly. She was sent by Mingyao and Xinyan to talk to Lin Yi. Others wouldn't be able to say something like this out loud, but Shu was the only one who could do it. Yeah, I'll come back as soon as I get the jade orchid grass. Lin Yi nodded with a smile. Let's not mention the fact that Xan Yan's still waiting for me to treat her at home. Even if I wanted to stay a few more days, the people from Snow Valley probably wouldn't let me. They don't even know me. Yeah, even if they let you stay a few more days, Shield bro has to come back. Otherwise Shu will miss you too much and lose weight. You won't have big breasts anymore and you won't look good anymore. Yushu said. Mingyao rolled her eyes and kicked Yushu. I really hope your breasts are thinner. Yao Yao, you're just jealous. Yushu didn't think much of it. I'll give you a liposuction in the middle of the night. Mengyao's face was green with anger. Ah Lin Yi, it seems like you really need to come back soon. Otherwise Yao Yao and Shu will fight because of you. Xinyan laughed. Lin Yi found it odd that the three girls were trying so hard to get him to stay, trying to convince him to come back as soon as possible. This was something that had never happened before. Whether he went to the tomb or Songshan, they only told him to be careful. But Lin Yi didn't think much about it. He didn't have any reason to suspect anything. He could only assume that the three girls thought it was a long journey and didn't want Lin Yi to stay outside. Alright, I'll be going then. You guys go back and rest. Lin Yi waved at them and got in the car. He drove to Snowy Valley according to the coordinates old Lin gave him. A day after Lin Yi left, a call came from the Snowy Valley. However, the caller wasn't Tang Yun but Mrs. Tang. Hello. Yao Yao, it's Annie Wang. Yujia didn't know that Lin Yi had already left for Snowy Valley. She thought that Lin Yi was at home, so she lowered her voice when she called Meng Yao. Annie Wang? Meng Yao, on the other hand, was startled. She couldn't remember who this Auntie Wang was. She knew her name right away, but her voice was a little unfamiliar. It's Yun Yun's mom. Yujia seemed to have realized this as well. She quickly explained. Lin Yi isn't with you, is he? It's you, Auntie. Meng Yao was surprised and happy. I was just about to look for you. Where's Tang Yun? Is she here? Why is it you calling? Kang Xiaobo came earlier. He told me to tell Yun Yun that you were looking for her, but Yun Yun doesn't have a chance to contact the outside world right now. The Grand Elder is forcing her to train hard, not allowing her to contact the outside world. Mrs. Tang was helpless as well. She may have been a tyrant in Snowy Valley, but that was under the condition that she didn't cross the Grand Elder's bottom line. Tang Yun was training obediently, and that meant that everything was fine. Otherwise, the Grand Elder wouldn't have been so lenient towards Mrs. Tang. Chapter 2753. Oh, what is it? Mrs. Tang asked. Lin Yi went to Snowy Valley. Meng Yao said. What? Lin Yi came? Mrs. Tang was shocked. Why is he here? Did he remember what happened to Yun Yun? Mrs. Tang wanted Lin Yi and Tang Yun to reunite, but she respected Tang Yun's decision, so she was shocked and worried when Lin Yi came to Snowy Valley. No, he didn't. He's actually going to Snowy Valley to ask for medicine. Meng Yao said as she told Mrs. Tang about Wang Xinyan. Mrs. Tang knew about Wang Xinyan, and she knew that Tang Yun agreed to be Lin Yi's girlfriend, so she didn't object to it. She let out a breath of relief. It's good that he's not here to cause trouble. With his current strength, he can't go against Snowy Valley. Yeah, so I'll have to trouble you for the rest of the matter, Meng Yao said. No problem, leave it to me. Mrs. Tang agreed, but she made a decision in her heart. This time, when Lin Yi came, she had to find a chance to take Tang Yun to see Lin Yi. Even if it was just from afar, it was Tang Yun's biggest wish. Mrs. Tang knew how much Tang Yun missed Lin Yi, so even if she couldn't reunite with him, Tang Yun still wanted to see Lin Yi. And one more thing, Lin Yi went to Snowy Valley to trade and he used a sky-class spiritual weapon. I'm afraid that he'll be at a disadvantage because he's too eager to save Wang Xinyan. Do you think? Meng Yao felt that the value of a sky-class spiritual weapon should be higher than the orchid jade grass, but if Lin Yi went to trade, he might be taken advantage of by Snowy Valley. Oh, I see. Don't worry, I won't let him be at a disadvantage. I'll keep an eye on him these few days. If he comes, I'll help him trade. Mrs. Tang agreed immediately. She was the best at this kind of thing. That's good. Thank you, Auntie. Meng Yao breathed out in relief. Everything had been settled. She could rest easy now. Hey, there's no need to be so polite. We're all family. Auntie is a spy from the Snow Valley, and she's here to benefit herself at the expense of the public. Don't worry, if Lin Yi can't get anything good, you can ask Auntie. Mrs. Tang said with a smile. Haha. Meng Yao chuckled as well. She used to think that Mrs. Tang was a snob, a little petty, but now it seemed that she wasn't. Alright, Auntie, I'll ask Yun Yun to call you. One more thing. Oh? What is it? Mrs. Tang asked. It's like this, there's a guy who came back from overseas, his name is Tang Yuqi, he says he's Tang Yun's cousin? Meng Yao said. She told Mrs. Tang about Tang Yuqi's situation in detail. Tang Yuqi? I'll ask old Tang and Tang Yun about this. After all, he might come all the way to Snow Valley. We need Yun Yun to make a decision, Mrs. Tang said. And sure. Give me a call when you've made a decision. Meng Yao said. No problem, it's very convenient for me to make calls, Mrs. Tang said. Lin Yi's jeep drove into Snow Valley. Lin Yi's speed was faster than Kang Xiaobo's and he didn't need to rest. He drove day and night until he reached his destination. This is Snow Valley's territory. If you are a traveler or an explorer, please stop. Lin Yi's car had just entered when a patrolling disciple ran over and stopped in front of Lin Yi's jeep, signaling for Lin Yi to stop. The disciple's tone was polite, but there was an irresistible authority in it. Are we finally here? Linny looked at the vast expanse of whiteness outside the window. He felt like he was in an ice palace. These two places were quite similar. Linny opened the window and a gust of cold wind blew into his face. But this was nothing to Linny. Linny said politely to the disciple, "Hello, this is Snow Valley, right? I'm not a traveler but a practitioner. I'm here to trade for treasures." "You're a practitioner too? Are you here to exchange for treasures?" The patrolling disciple was taken aback for a moment, then nodded and said, "Then please come with me." The process was surprisingly smooth and Linny was a little surprised. It seemed like Snow Valley was a sect that did business. He could use this reason to tell the truth. If it was the Ice Palace, he would have been rejected already. "You're a practitioner too? You're here to trade for treasures?" The patrolling disciple was slightly taken aback, and then he nodded and said, "Then please wait here and allow me to report it." With that, the patrolling disciple tossed a piece of paper at Lin Yi's car, sticking it to the windshield. Patrolling Disciple 22, waiting to report, was written on it, with an indecipherable symbol that looked like a snowy mountain beside it. After he stuck the note, he quickly left, leaving Lin Yi to wait on the spot. Since the disciple agreed to report, Lin Yi returned to the car and waited patiently for the disciple's news. It wasn't long before the patrolling disciple came back quickly. "You're in luck, the Grand Elder is free today. If you need anything, just tell her. She has the highest authority in the valley, and she's the one who has the highest authority in the valley. Usually the elders are on duty. Today it's the Great Elder's turn." "Okay, thank you." Lin Yi quickly cupped his fists. The disciple didn't say anything else. He waved his hand and signaled for Lin Yi to follow him. The entire process was surprisingly smooth. Lin Yi was a little surprised. It seemed like Snow Valley was a sect that did business. They agreed to trade for treasures. If it was the Ice Palace, they would have been rejected. Lin Yi followed the patrolling disciple to the guest room. Lin Yi parked the car at the door and followed the disciple into the guest room. The disciple said, "Please wait for a moment. Our Great Elder will be here soon." "It's okay. I'll wait here." Lin Yi nodded. After a while, a middle-aged woman came to the guest room. Usually, the elder on duty would be in charge of receiving cultivators who came to the Snow Valley to trade. However, the Grand Supreme Elder happened to be doing his routine inspection today, so he personally came to take a look. Chapter 2754. How about this? A water element sky class weapon and a herb. I'll trade it for your mist element sky class weapon. What do you think? You're getting quite the bargain this way. Lin Yi nodded, not trying to bargain anymore. The Grand Elder was right. It looked like Shuegu was getting the better end of the deal, getting a sky class weapon that suited them, but at the end of the day it was still Lin Yi who was getting the better end of the deal. It was the same sky class weapon, and with a herb Lin Yi had gotten a herb for free. Xiao Xiao was just a cover, and Lin Yi didn't dare push Shuegu too hard. This outcome was already very satisfying for Lin Yi. He nodded. "You have the jade orchid grass here, right?" "Yes." The Supreme Elder nodded his head. "Since I've agreed to it, I can use it to exchange with you. But what I want to tell you is that although the value of this orchid mustard jade grass isn't as high as a heaven-ranked divine weapon, it's still a good item. No matter how serious your injuries are, as long as you're still breathing, you can use it to prolong your life." Lin Yi didn't expect the jade orchid grass to have such a miraculous effect. Old Lin had only said that Xinyan needed it, but he didn't say what it did. Hearing this now, Lin Yi suddenly remembered that if Han Jingjing had had something like this, he could have eaten it after his injuries, and he wouldn't have been in such a dangerous situation. This was good stuff. Especially when he was away from home, and if an enemy came to attack, he'd be able to buy some time with it. "How long can it prolong your life?" Lin Yi asked. "You're here for the jade orchid grass, but you don't know what it does?" The Grand Elder was a bit confused, but he still answered. "Depending on the level and the injury, the time varies from a few days to a few months." "Oh." Lin Yi nodded. But this didn't have much to do with him. This herb was going to be given to Xinyan after he got back. Even if it could prolong her life, it wouldn't be of much use. "Are we exchanging now? A stalk of orchid mustard jade grass and a water-type heaven-ranked divine weapon in exchange for your mist attribute heaven-ranked divine weapon?" the Supreme Elder asked. Just as Lin Yi was about to agree, a lion's roar came from the door of the reception room. "No." Then a middle-aged woman rushed into the reception room and stood in front of Lin Yi. He shouted, "You can't change it. You can't change it." "You are." Lin Yi was stunned as he looked at the middle-aged woman who had rushed in. Who was this person? How did he get here? It was none other than Mrs. Tang. The Grand Elder stared at her in astonishment. He thought to himself, who told her that? Today he had personally received her without the approval of the elders of the valley. There was no way Mrs. Tang could have been a spy, and no one could have tipped her off. Of course no one tipped Mrs. Tang off. Mrs. Tang had talked to Meng Yao on the phone before. She knew that Lin Yi would arrive in the valley in a few days, so she would go to the reception room every day to see if Lin Yi had arrived. As a result, Mrs. Tang came to visit again today. She heard that the Grand Elder wanted to exchange something with Lin Yi, so she didn't care and roared to stop Lin Yi from doing the exchange. "Oh, I'm the inspector of the valley. My job is to monitor the unfair things that happen in the valley." Mrs. Tang paused but immediately realized that Lin Yi probably didn't know her. After taking the senseless grass, Lin Yi would forget everything that happened with Tang Yun. Other than Tang Yun, Mrs. Tang didn't have any contact with Lin Yi. Naturally, Lin Yi didn't know her, so she made up an identity. "Inspector?" Lin Yi paused. What kind of position was that? Why did it sound like a spy? However, Lin Yi didn't need to study the personnel system in the valley. "Then do you think that this exchange is unfair?" "Of course it's unfair, it's unfair," Mrs. Tang said indignantly. "How is it unfair?" Lin Yi was speechless. He'd just gotten the Grand Elder to agree on the terms and conditions, and now there was this watcher. Was it fated that he could only trade a sky-class weapon for a single herb? "Young man, you're losing big time." Mrs. Tang picked up the misty heaven-grade weapon from the tea table and said, "This is good stuff. You're making a huge loss by only exchanging it for a stalk of orchid jade grass and a water-type heaven-grade weapon." Lin Yi was shocked. He thought that Mrs. Tang felt that the valley was losing out and wanted to stop the trade. He didn't think that she would say that he was losing out. Lin Yi didn't understand. Was this person telling the truth or was she joking? "You can exchange it for a broken herb? That's too little." Mrs. Tang shook her head and said, "According to what I know, a batch of orchid mustard jade grass just matured a while ago. There are a total of 4 stalks. How can you only exchange for one? In my opinion, if you want to trade, you'll need at least 4 stalks of orchid mustard jade grass and a water-type heaven-ranked divine weapon." Ugh. Lin Yi was a bit confused. He turned to look at the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder was furious. Did Lin Yi think that the orchid jade grass was something that could be found on the streets? It took decades for a batch to mature, and this time only 4 matured. Although she still had some in stock, she didn't want to give up 4 at once. "Grand Elder, am I right? Don't you think that's fair?" Mrs. Tang turned to the Grand Elder with a grin on her face. "Barely fair, of course it's barely fair." The Grand Elder was so angry that smoke was coming out of her head. She really wanted to kick Mrs. Tang out, but it was just a fantasy. She didn't dare do anything to Mrs. Tang. If anything happened to Mrs. Tang, Tang Yun might give up on her training. Rock Candy might even come to Shuegu. Not only could the valley not do anything to Mrs. Tang, they had to protect her. If she accidentally broke her leg, then Shuegu would be like yellow mud falling into her pants. Even if it wasn't shit, it was shit. Shuegu couldn't tell the difference. Although the Grand Elder was helpless, she could only say that it was fair. Chapter 2755. Plus, she could enter and leave the valley as she pleased, entering the guest room and interrupting the conversation between the Grand Elder and the guest without being stopped by the other disciples. Could it be that this position was a very powerful one? Mrs. Tang's strength came entirely from the pills she consumed. She had eaten quite a lot of the Snowy Valley soul-gathering pills, and small chi-gathering pills. Her goal wasn't to gain strength, but to live a few more years with Tang Yun and rob the Snowy Valley for a few more years. "Oh, then should we trade now?" Lin Yi asked. "Let's trade now." The Grand Elder nodded. "Oh, then you guys trade, I'm leaving." Mrs. Tang saw that Lin Yi had come and naturally rushed to find Tang Yun. She knew that after the Grand Elder and Lin Yi exchanged things, he would tell Lin Yi to leave as soon as possible. So Mrs. Tang had to hurry. With that, Mrs. Tang left on her own, not even bothering to look at the Grand Elder. Lin Yi was even more shocked. Wasn't she looking down on the Grand Elder too much? After Mrs. Tang left, the Grand Elder let out a sigh of relief and said to Lin Yi, "Let's go, Mr. Lin. Come with me to the treasury and get the things we want to trade." Grand Elder Zhao guessed that Mrs. Tang was probably going to find Tang Yun, so how could she let Lin Yi stay in the guest room? She wanted to follow Lin Yi to the treasury and complete the trade. Then she would personally send Lin Yi out of the valley to avoid any contact with Tang Yun. Originally, only elders and above could enter the Snow Valley's treasury, let alone outsiders. But the Grand Elder had to bring him along in order to keep an eye on Lin Yi. Alright, Grand Elder, that Snowy Valley patroller, what's his position? Lin Yi asked, a little confused. He seems pretty strong? Ahem. The Grand Elder coughed twice, not knowing how to explain. She's someone we can't afford to offend. Forget it, let's not talk about her. Her position is very special. Let's hurry to the treasury. Okay. Lin Yi saw that the highest elder was unwilling to say more, so he did not ask further. After all, this was the internal affairs of the Snow Valley, and it was not appropriate for an outsider like him to say much. After Mrs. Tang left the guest room, she ran straight to Tang Yun's training room. The disciple on duty didn't dare stop her and let her in. Tang Yun had just finished her practice when she heard footsteps. She opened her eyes and saw Mrs. Tang. Mom, why are you here? Let's go, Yun. Mom's taking you to see someone. Mrs. Tang said as she pulled Tang Yun's hand towards the door. Who are you looking at? Tang Yun was confused. What was wrong with her mother today? He had rushed here in such a hurry, and before they had even said a few words, he had already pulled her out. You'll know when we get there. We won't be able to make it if we wait any longer. Mrs. Tang was planning to give Tang Yun a surprise. Okay. Tang Yun was pulled by her mother as they ran. You stop. Mrs. Tang walked for a while, originally heading for the guest room. But she suddenly stopped and pointed at a patrolling disciple. Oh. The disciple was shocked and quickly stopped. Who in the Snow Valley didn't know Mrs. Tang? Those who didn't know Tang Yun also knew Mrs. Tang. Oh, it's Aunt Wang. What's the matter? I'm asking you, did you see the Grand Elder? Mrs. Tang asked. The patrolling disciple did see the Grand Elder, but he didn't have the right to discuss the whereabouts of the Grand Elder. He hesitated and didn't answer. You don't want to talk? You don't want to live in the Snow Valley anymore? Mrs. Tang glared at him angrily. I'm sure you've heard of the rumors about me in the Snow Valley. They said that they would rather offend the Valley Master, Sydney, than offend Aunt Wang. I think you want to offend me, right? Do you believe that I won't kick you out right now? The patrolling disciple was sweating profusely. Hurry up and tell me. If someone blames you, I'll make sure you're fine. Just push the blame onto me. Mrs. Tang humphed. Yes, I saw the Grand Elder. She went to the treasury. The patrolling disciple sighed in relief after hearing Mrs. Tang's promise. Oh, did she go alone or with someone else? Mrs. Tang continued. With a young man, the disciple replied honestly. All right, you can go now. Mrs. Tang waved her hand, signaling the disciple to leave. The patrolling disciple felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and quickly left. Old thing, I knew you were up to no good. Let's go, Tang Yun, let's go to the treasury. Mrs. Tang waved her hand and brought Tang Yun to the treasury. Mom, what are you talking about? What old thing? What's up to no good? Tang Yun didn't know what her mother was talking about. Oh, don't worry about it. Just follow me, Mrs. Tang said. Oh. Tang Yun nodded and followed her mother. Mr. Lin, this is the treasury of the Snowy Valley. After you enter, don't move around. I hope you understand. The Grand Elder spoke politely to Lin Yi because he didn't want any unnecessary conflict. He quickly gave him the things and told him to leave. It would be bad if he met Tang Yun in the Snowy Valley. All right. Lin Yi understood. This was an ancient sect's treasury. It was good enough that he was allowed to enter. He wouldn't be so ignorant as to touch it. The Grand Elder took out the Water Element Heaven-class weapon from the treasury, and 4 stalks of orchid jade grass. The things are here, Mr. Lin, please take a look. If it's possible, leave your Mist Element Heaven-class weapon behind, and I'll send you out of the valley. All right. Lin Yi felt like the Grand Elder was chasing him away. It was as if he couldn't wait to finish the deal and leave. However, the Grand Elder was polite and didn't break the deal. Lin Yi didn't care too much. The Grand Elder could do whatever he wanted. He might have other things to do later. After all, the Grand Elder of a sect had many things to do. He couldn't use all of them to receive cultivators who wanted to trade for treasures. Lin Yi quickly checked the items the Grand Elder brought over. There shouldn't be any mistakes. He nodded. No problem. It was a pleasure trading. Chapter 2756. All right, thank you. Lin Yi nodded. The two of them exited the treasury and walked back the way they came, but after a few steps, the Grand Elder's expression changed. Not far from them, Mrs. Tang and Tang Yun were walking towards them. The Grand Elder's footsteps paused, puzzling Lin Yi. He raised his head to see that Snowy Valley Watcher, who'd helped him walk over to him, with a girl in white beside her. She didn't have any makeup on, but that pure beauty made Lin Yi's heart skip a beat. He felt an inexplicable feeling in his heart. When Lin Yi looked at Tang Yun also saw Lin Yi. Her beautiful face flashed with excitement, and a thin layer of mist appeared in her eyes. She immediately lowered her head, afraid that her strange behavior would arouse Lin Yi's curiosity. Tang Yun never thought that the person her mother brought her to see was Lin Yi. Why did he come to the Snow Valley? What was he doing here? But it didn't seem like he was looking for her, because at this moment, Tang Yun could feel that Lin Yi didn't know her. What a strange girl. Lin Yi saw Tang Yun lower her head and wondered what was wrong with her. He wanted to take a closer look, but the Grand Elder grabbed Lin Yi's hand and said, "Mr. Lin, let's go." Oh. Lin Yi was pulled far away by the Grand Elder. The Grand Elder was a master at the peak of the late stage of heaven class, so Lin Yi didn't have any intention of resisting. Even if he did, he wouldn't be able to stop. However, the girl's image seemed to be carved into his heart, and he couldn't get it out of his head. He wanted to see the girl's face clearly, so he turned around and saw that the girl had also turned around and was looking at him. Their eyes met, but Lin Yi's heart palpitated. It was as if he had seen this beautiful girl in his previous life. Otherwise, Lin Yi would not have lost his composure after seeing so many beauties. In fact, Lin Yi still couldn't see the girl's face clearly, because just as Lin Yi was stunned, the girl lowered her head again. Could this be the so-called love at first sight? Lin Yi was confused. He had never felt this kind of love at first sight before. The girl was getting further and further away from Lin Yi's eyes, turning into a small black dot before he could no longer see her. The Grand Elder had pulled him away. "Grand Elder, who's the girl next to the inspector?" Lin Yi turned around and asked curiously. He'd even forgotten to check out the girl's strength. The Grand Elder's expression changed slightly and he said solemnly, "Mr. Lin, don't you think that your words are a bit rash? Who she is an internal matter of our sect. I have no obligation to answer Shuigu's secrets. This has nothing to do with you, you are only here to exchange for something. Now that you have it, leave quickly." "I'm sorry." Lin Yi shook his head, thinking that he had indeed been rash. Shuigu had no obligation to tell him who this person was, and even if he knew who she was, it had nothing to do with him. It was taboo for him to pry into someone else's sect in private, so Lin Yi let it go. Tang Yun raised her head, tears streaming down her face. She stared at Lin Yi's back in direction, clenching her fists, her body trembling uncontrollably. Yun, he's gone, let's go back." Mrs. Tang sighed, not sure if it was the right decision to bring Tang Yun here. Tang Yun nodded, "Thank you, Mom. I just took one look at him, and knowing that he's doing well is enough." "Ah, he came to Shuigu this time to exchange for something?" With that, Mrs. Tang told Tang Yun about Lin Yi's purpose for coming here. When Tang Yun heard her mother say that under her interference, the Grand Elder agreed to give Lin Yi 4 stalks of jade orchid grass, she couldn't help but laugh. "Mom, I want to see him one more time." Tang Yun didn't want to leave. Lin Yi should have left Shuigu by now, but Shuigu was a naturally formed depression. As long as one stood on the highest peak of the valley, they would be able to see Lin Yi. "Then go," Mrs. Tang supported Tang Yun. Mrs. Tang was very supportive of Tang Yun. "If you want to go, then go. I'll be here. Don't worry, if that old geezer comes looking for you, I'll cover for you." "And thank you, Mom." Tang Yun was very happy. She used to think that her mother was controlling everything and giving her random ideas, which annoyed her a little. But now she knew how good her mother was to her. "No need to be so polite with Mom." Mrs. Tang smiled. Tang Yun jumped up and disappeared from Mrs. Tang's sight, floating to the highest edge of the valley. Tang Yun was now an early phase of sky class, and because she received the inheritance, her path of training was unimpeded. There were no barriers or obstacles and she went all the way to sky class. Tang Yun didn't need to use any medicine to get to sky class, and this was naturally because of the benefits of the inheritance. Of course, because she came from an ancient sect, Tang Yun knew a lot more. Only by practicing heartless arts to the highest level could one reach sky class late phase peak. The Grand Elder also practiced heartless arts, but because she didn't reach the highest level, her strength was only at sky class late phase peak, not sky class late phase peak. But to advance to the heavenly Tao, according to legend, only sky class late phase peak had a higher chance. Normal sky class late phase peak had little hope. And this wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that if the inheritor wanted to do that big thing, he had to have the strength of Sky-class late-phase peak to have the ability to protect himself, or else there was a high chance of danger. Mr. Lin, I will send you here. You can leave now. The Grand Elder sent Lin Yi to the entrance of the valley, and then made a gesture of invitation to Lin Yi.